All right. Well, welcome, everybody. We're doing another one of our at-home table reads. Tonight, we're doing George A. Romero's draft of Resident Evil from back in 1998. So joining us tonight as our heroes, Chris Redfield. Yeah, Keagan. Where's he at? Perfect. And as his counterpart, Jill Valentine. Jess hanging out right there. We also have Rebecca, among many other characters. Awesome. There's Shawn. As Marcus, along with Barry. Fantastic. We got Erik there. As Ada Wong, among others. And Angi hanging out there. And I'll be taking over action description. So let's get ourselves started. Resident Evil, original screenplay by George A. Romero, based on the game by Capcom. First draft, October 7th, 1998. Presentation credits appear, then fade. Out of black, shot cut to interior lab, A-level, timeless. A man's face filling the screen.
Stay away from here!
We're watching a video monitor. A pre-recorded tape shows a view of what is obviously a pristine research laboratory. Dr. John Marcus, in a lab coat, faces the camera, disheveled and looking like a madman.
This lab must be sealed! Remain sealed.
Interior conference room, timeless. Overhead lamps cast pools of light down on a conference table in the hands of people assembled to observe the video. We see no faces, but observe watches, sleeves with high-ranking stripes indicating wealth, power, and a military presence. The video, on a wall behind Marcus, we see shadows darting frantically. We hear voices rising in panic.
For God's sakes, don't come in!
The camera is swatted away by a hand that lurches suddenly into the foreground. We see it for only a few video frames, but we might subliminally notice lesions on the flesh. The image swirls wildly. The next clear picture we see is of the same laboratory, topsy-turvy. The camera is lying on its side on the floor.
Look, here.
A laser pointer casts a red dot on the corner of the video screen, indicating a hunched figure leaning over a human body, apparently feeding. With a grunt, the figure turns and lunges, its face covered with blood. At the camera, and the image swirls again, and the screen goes black. With a musical sting, a single title appears, full across the blackness. Resident Evil. Exterior forest land pre-dawn. A dark sky, and in the foreground, profiled against a full moon, a dark face, watching the heavens with piercing black eyes, alert, though not predatory. This is Chris Redfield, young, handsome, more than simply an outdoor type. He seems perfectly in place, almost part of the environment. A band of purple tints the horizon, outlining the tops of the magnificent, uncorrupted hills that extend for miles. Sitting on a ridge, squinting into the band of light, Chris sees an eagle, coasting on a channel of wind that cuts through the hilltops. As the bird moves swiftly closer, it becomes recognizable. Chris smiles and jots a note on a pad. The regal bird lands on a high rock where, unexpectedly, a freshwater trout lies flapping 3,000 feet above the highest water.
I worked on this voice. Take it, Goliath. It's your... No, that's terrible. All right.
Goliath snaps up the fish and flies away with it.
See you next year, guy. I'm sticking with it. Fuck it.
That's fine. Chris reaches into the water-filled bucket, pulls out another trout, climbs efficiently, unerring across the precarious cliffsides, and deposits the fresh fish on the same side high rock. Another eagle, smaller, a female, appears in the sky.
Cleopatra.
Chris scrambles back into his place and jots another note. Cleopatra spots the fish, pumps her wings, and swoops down. She's about to snap up the prize, but at the last minute, she recoils and climbs again, hovering.
Come on down.
The eagle circles, its sharp eyes scanning. It makes another dive, but stops short again.
What's the matter, beautiful?
The bird seems frightened. Of what? It makes one more dive, gets very close to the fish, but suddenly shrieks and peels away from the rock. Chris sees its eyes, looking crazed as it soars right past him, its wings brushing his hair. Close on Chris, concerned, as he watches the eagle disappear over the hills. Over his shoulder, we can see a high rock that holds the fish. There's something out of focus in the background, but the moon catches something moving there. Someone lets out a sharp, inhuman sound. Chris rolls around. There's something on the rock. Or there's nothing on the rock. Nothing at all. The fish has been taken. Interior Jill's apartment, dawn. Chris walks into a characterless apartment. He quietly shreds his clothes. Even in silhouette, we can see his body is in perfect shape. Not pumped, but lean and tight. Moving lithely with the natural grace of a cat, he eases himself into bed, where a young, beautiful girl, Jill Valentine, seems to be fast asleep. As Chris nestles in bed beside her, we see that her eyes, facing away, are open. Chris gently drapes an arm around her and lets his body relax.
Glad you're still here, lady. I don't know what that voice sounds like in a whisper.
My apartment. It's my apartment.
You're awake.
I've been awake since you left.
Sorry.
His apology goes no further. He's still troubled by what happened in the hills.
There was something wrong.
What, with my dinner? I never had a mother. I'll learn.
Chris smiles politely. He offers,
I'll do the cooking.
but he can't switch focus.
On the mountain there must have been something prowling around up there.
There are probably all kinds of things prowling up around up there in the middle of the night.
Chris apologizes again, this time more sincerely.
I'm sorry. Really. You have to be there at dawn. They ride the wind over the ridge.
Dawn? You left at 1 a.m.
I had to go fishing. It's the fish that bring them down, so I can get a close look at them. Enthused. I've tracked a dozen of them. Jill, 12 of those big bruisers. I can actually recognize them. I've even given them names over the years.
You've been doing this for years?
Only in the early autumn, when they're migrating.
I'll set the alarm for next October.
Jill rolls over and faces him.
I wish I could get excited. Really, that's the truth. As excited as you over such simple things.
Beauty isn't simple. If it was, I'd be beautiful.
You are.
No. I'm simple. You, on the other hand, have all that stuff.
I'm sorry. So good.
Oh, God. Okay. All that stuff hiding underneath somewhere. That's what's fascinating to me.
Fascination, not love.
Jill's being playful. Chris, taking your question to heart, becomes introspective.
I honestly don't know. I guess I've been living alone too long. You're the first, the only woman I've ever thought of as a real partner.
Now Jill becomes introspective.
I've always been afraid of living alone. I've always had people talking at me, knowing they could wind me up, and I'd do whatever they wanted.
Chris looks into her eyes. She kisses him gently.
We all have something hidden underneath. Beauty may not be simple, but it's not all that complicated either. Most of the time you find it right in the middle of all the confusion.
I'm part Mohawk. Indians are never confused. At least they never let it show.
They kiss again, this time more passionately. Rolling over, they begin to make love. Exterior farm, dawn. Sorry, I just got Keagan.
Sure.
Exterior farm, dawn. The purple horizon is turning orange, but it's still quite dark when a crusty old farmhand, Rake, opens the creaking door of the stable and with a flashlight leads 3 horses out into the morning breeze. 2 dogs, a lab and a spaniel, romp at his heels as Rake opens a log gate. 2 of the untethered horses trot obediently into a large corral. The third, a beautiful stallion, resists, snorting, tossing its head in high spirit.
Get in there, Lucky. Quit horsing around. Get in.
Lucky moves into the corral, strutting proudly.
Swear, if I didn't know you was an animal, I'd say you were all full of yourself. Get in there.
Rake waves his flashlight. Not mainly. There's clearly a great deal of affection here. Rake shuts the gate behind the stallion, who begins to gallop around happily inside the fence. All seems lovely until the dogs suddenly go on point. Their ears perk, they sniff the air, and begin to whine.
What's wrong with you two?
Crack. A startling sound. Rake turns to find Lucky and the other horses, their eyes flaring, trying to kick their way out of the fencing. They seem terrified. Cut to a wide shot of Rake and the terrified animals from 200 yards away. The camera moves in, slowly at first, then gaining speed. Extraordinary speed. We are seeing through the eyes of whatever it is that's running, charging, slaughtering hungrily. Reaching the corral, darting through the fence, past the kicking horses, and leaping at Rake, who whirls around and cries out in pain as his flashlight blinds us with whiteness.
Youch.
Exterior airbase dawn. The whiteness becomes the glare of a halogen light. We are overwhelmed by the sound of aircraft engines. We see men, armed soldiers, scrambling into combat helicopters. A radio man runs right towards the camera, holding out the open receiver.
Top brass, sir.
Another man in the foreground takes the radio phone. We don't see his face, only his forearm. It bears a tattoo of a grinning skull. Alpha leader.
How long before you get in there?
15 minutes. Interior office dawn. A suit talks to a red telephone. Once again, we see no face. An ostentatious diamond ring kicks light as the man snips off the end of a Monte Cristo.
You're a good soldier, but not that good. It's 500 miles away in the backwoods of Pennsylvania.
We have troopers on site. A first strike force. Undercover. The flame from the wooden match lights the Monte Cristo.
Very resourceful. You have my permission. Activate them.
Exterior airbase dawn. I've already done that. You have my permission to say that you gave me permission. The tattooed man runs off and joins the other soldiers. Interior Jill's apartment morning. Chris sleeps. Jill is awake, deep in thought when... It's not a ring, it's a vibration. Jill reaches down and extracts something small and black, the size of a box of Tic Tacs, from one of her shoes. She gets out of bed, checking to see if Chris is still asleep, and moves into a bathroom. Closing the door behind her, she puts the small box to her ear, extracting a wire from it with a tiny microphone on its tip. And
Valentine,
we can't hear the voice that speaks to her.
if this is just another drill, I'll strangle you. Shit. Give me the activation code.
Jill pulls a small envelope from a toiletry bag. She breaks open a wax seal and takes out a thick paper on which is printed 29-RC-6735.
That's a match. I'm on my way.
Jill clicks off. She dumps something else from the envelope into her hand, a blue plastic card, the size of a Visa, blank except for a mag strip. There's a small hole in one corner, through which a chain is strung. Jill slings the chain overhead, wearing the blue card like a pendant. Interior Jill's apartment morning. Chris is still fast asleep. Jill comes out of the bathroom and looks down at him longingly. Should she wake him? Tell him what's happening? She wants to, but duty prevents it. She pulls herself away. Interior closet morning. Tick, tick, tick. Jill pushes aside hangers which hold her clothes. She types numbers into a hidden keypad. A secret panel opens, revealing a closet within the closet, packed with combat uniform and weapons. Interior Jill's apartment. The sound, ching of the front door closing, snaps Chris awake. His first thought is for his lover. He reaches out and finds that, well, she's not in bed. He jumps up, rushes to the window, looks down from the second story, and sees Jill, heavily armed, in uniform, wearing a beret that has an insignia, stars. She runs down the front path and jumps into a Hummer with 3 other troopers on board. The vehicle pulls instantly away, leaving Chris looking through the window, puzzled, angry, and very much wounded. Interior, exterior, Hummer, morning. Russo drives. Williams and D. Simone sit in the back, all tough special forces types. Jill, who's in the front passenger seat, though the only female, ranks the highest.
Another practice one, right?
We've been practicing 6 months. For what?
For this. This is the real deal.
Honest to God.
Based on my experience, Williams, God isn't always honest. Where are we going? In there.
Jill points to the Arklay forest, which lies ahead. Miles of old growth trees shrouded the ghostly morning mist. Dissolved to exterior morning, the forest. Deep in the heart of the mist, the Hummer bounces over the non-roads and stops 50 yards from a pair of iron gates, each wrought with the letter A. Beyond, the shifting fog offers momentary glimpses of a mansion. Huge, like Xanadu. The troopers, amazed, climb out and approach the gates.
If you had the jing to build this place, to a place like this, would you build it in the middle of fucking nowhere?
Paris.
Manhattan, Upper West. Some people prefer a quiet life. Our orders are to secure the area. From what? This area's been secure since the French and Indian War.
A deep animal snarl comes from the woods. The troopers raise their weapons as they peer into the underbrush. The fog keeps sunlight from penetrating. The forest is a maze of dark shadows. Leaves flutter, limbs snap. Then, dark shapes can be seen moving, circling, a half dozen of them, maybe more. Jill whips out a transmitter and quickly types in an access code.
This is Valentine, Bravo team. We might be in trouble here.
Critch. Something leaps out of the brush. Automatic weapons spit reflexively. Critch, critch, critch. More lunging shapes appear. The troopers scatter, firing as they are attacked from all sides. Jill dives for the shrubbery, shouting into the transmitter.
We are in trouble.
Cut to interior Huey morning. Jill's voice stutters over a headset which is pressed against a man's ear.
Under attack by assailants unidentified.
Static, hissing air. The shot widens as the man lowers his headset. First we see the tattoo on his arm, a grinning skull which we recognize. Then gradually we see his face, lean and mean, wearing dark sunglasses. This is Albert Wesker, a hard-assed career officer. Can you get a trace? The pilot, LaGuardia, responds.
Lost the beacon. Just cut out. Like it was swallowed by something.
Oddly, Wesker smiles. I do believe, gentlemen, we're going to be earning some combat pay. There are 3 other men on board. The closest to Wesker is Barry Burton, a muscular black man as big as a grizzly with the heart of a teddy.
Damn, if you don't love a fight.
Hey, if I didn't, you'd be a dead man. Calling a 9-9. I want Raccoon City evac. Wesker and the men fly from the lens. The camera passes out through one of the helicopter's windows as the chopper soars away. The shot widens. We see other Hueys, black, unmarked, keeping formation. 3, 6, 10 of them. Exterior forest warning. Guns blaze. The troopers are under assault by thrashing inhuman shapes, growling, snapping. Jill rolls into a natural trench. DeSimone is behind her. Williams is crawling just ahead, his legs pumping. Jill scoots past him and sees that those legs aren't moving on their own. They've been ripped away from Williams' torso and are being dragged into the underbrush by some beast. Concealed in the thick brush, we never get a clear look of it. Other beasts attack DeSimone, then Russo. We only see details. Jill fires her pistol, point blank, but no avail. Red-rimmed eyes, snarling jaws, drooling teeth descend on her as we cut to exterior Jill's apartment. Morning. Chris steps out of Jill's building. Suddenly, incongruously, camo-painted Hueys swoop down out of the sky. Exterior Raccoon City, Main Street. Morning. The choppers land where they can. Commandos leap out and begin to cordon off the town. Bullhorns blare.
There's been an accident in the hills nearby. A military aircraft carrying live weapons has crashed.
Exterior Raccoon City, side street. Morning. Chris runs down a side street into an alley where he's trapped by commandos, both in front and behind.
Let's go, Hayseed. You're gonna be a good boy.
Chris swallows his fury. Gritting his teeth, he goes along with the soldiers, prodded by rifle barrels, out onto the main street, where it is chaos in Orwellian sight as citizens find themselves hoarded into helicopters and trucks from the local National Guard post. A sweating man, still in his pajamas, rushes up to the soldiers that are escorting Chris. Look here, I'm the sheriff of this.
Step aside.
But I'm the sheriff, an ex-army man like you.
There is no immediate danger, but as a precaution, we are evacuating the area. You will be provided shelter until the weapons have been removed from the crash site.
It's a worn-out scenario. If a plane crashed nearby, don't you think somebody would have heard it go down? Tell us the truth, guys. What is this really about?
See it. Step aside.
The soldier lifts his rifle. He's about to club the sheriff when Chris lunges, grabbing his arm. Woof! Chris kicks the soldier in the balls. The man buckles. Chris bolts. One of the other commandos fires at him, a loud burst which misses Chris, but shatters a shop window, setting off wild panic in the streets. Chris ducks into a building and out of the rear door. He runs through a warren of back alleyways, arriving at a Jeep Sahara, which is parked behind Jill's apartment building. He jumps in without opening the door, jams the key into the ignition, and roars off. Interior Huey. Morning. Still airborne is one of the black helicopters that have yet to reach the site. Wesker barks orders into the radio. Charlie, David, Edwards, proceed to Raccoon City. Assist with the evac. I'm on a target with Alpha Team. All forces stand by, ready for support. Exterior farm. Morning. Chris rumbles in his Jeep onto a picturesque farm, secluded deep in the forest. We don't recognize it immediately. It was dark when we last saw the place. Jumping out, Chris sees 3 large shapes lying in the grass off a corral. Rushing over, Chris realizes they're horses. One of them is Lucky, his prize stallion, dead, in a pool of blood with its belly torn out and a huge chunk torn out of its neck.
Oh, no. Lucky.
Chris hears a weak, moaning sound. He turns and sees Rake lying near a water pump. Chris rushes to the man's side and finds him brutally slashed, barely clinging to life.
They come out of the trees. Ready? Don't know what there was. Figure maybe some kind of wolves or something.
Examining the man's wounds, Chris realizes they're fatal.
I never seen them coming.
Don't try to talk, Rake.
I ain't ever left this farm untended since your daddy first took it over.
I know, you kept the place running better than me.
I just never seen them coming, Reddy. Never even had a chance to turn a gun on them.
There's a thunder in the sky. Chris looks up. Wesker's fleet of black Hueys appears on the horizon. They split up, 7 banking off towards Raccoon City, the remaining 3 grinding ahead towards the forest, slowing down, dropping in altitude.
Where are they going? There's nothing in there except...
You ought to remember it real good. I do. From when you was a kid.
The old Arklay place?
I remember them days. I surely do. Remember them old days.
Chris looks down at the old man, who's drifting, starting to lose it.
I'm not gonna bullshit you, Rake. You're in a bad time. If there's any way to save you, I'll find it. I swear. You just hang in there, old guy. I'll be right back.
Chris jumps to his feet and runs into the farmhouse. The great room of the farmhouse. Rustic. Cozy. Chris snatches up a telephone. There's no dial tone. The line is dead. Chris rushes into a gun cabinet and pulls out an old Winchester rifle. He scoops ammo from a drawer into the shoulder bag and runs back outside, where his eyes catch movement in the corral. Lucky, entrails spilling, is trying to stand.
Oh, God, Rake. Oh, Jesus, the poor thing's still alive.
Chris shoulders his ammo bag, reaches inside, and quickly reloads the Winchester. Stepping forward, he aims carefully.
Sorry, old hoss.
Blam! A clean shot to the horse's brain drops the animal. It takes Chris a long moment to recover. Then he looks into the trees. The helicopters are no longer in sight, but their thunder remains. They haven't landed yet. Chris turns and rushes back to Rake's side, only to find he's died. Chris's jaw tightens, but he has no time to mourn. He closes Rake's eyes, digs through the grass, pulls up a handful of dirt, stuffs it into the old man's hand, then closes his stiffening fingers over it.
The earth keeps us.
Conquering his emotions, Chris runs to his Jeep and jumps in. He shifts the four-wheel drive and, ignoring the road, heads straight over the field for the trees. As the Jeep disappears, the camera cranes down, zooming in on one of the farm dogs, the spaniel. Not the entire animal, but one of the three separate parts. It's for the front end, crushed head, bloody neck, and a single broken paw, which is trying to crawl. 50 yards away, Rake's hand relaxes. The earth spills out from through his fingers as the dead man's eyes pop open. Exterior Arklay Forest morning. The first of the black Hueys drops hazardlessly onto a small clearing with barely enough space. Unable to land in the scrub brush, it hovers 10 feet above the ground. Its rotors clip tree leaves as Wesker, Barry, and two other STARS commandos jump out, heavily armed. The chopper lifts off, placed by Huey number 2. Not far away, Chris navigates through the undergrowth until he can see the helicopters through the trees. The thunder of their rotors masks the grinding of Chris's Jeep. He pulls up within 100 yards and, leaving his vehicle in the brush, moves closer, cautiously on foot. The third Huey airdrops 2 men and 2 women into the STARS uniforms. There are 12 commandos in all, Alpha Team. Wesker looks up at the Huey pilot, using his radio to speak to him. You'll have to rotate or you'll run out of fuel, but I want one chopper to remain in the air at all times. We might need help in a hurry. Roger that barks back to the Huey as it banks away. Barry looks worried. His instincts are asking, we might need help. Again, what? We can only see it on his eyes, but he says nothing as Wesker leads the team through the woods, unaware of Chris, following behind, crouching around the trees and bushes. Not a trained commando, but comfortable with the land, a natural warrior using ancestral instincts. The camera tracks combat boots as they crunch through the low-lying mist, stopping abruptly when they encounter weapons, ammo belts, bits of shredded uniforms, and human body parts strewn through the surrounding brush, remnants of what was obviously a feeding frenzy.
Holy God.
Brad Vickers vomits. Unarmed, he's Alpha Team's computer techie, not a combat soldier. He's a bit of a coward. Another non-combatant, Rebecca Chambers, is the team's medical officer. She digs an ammonia capsule from her bag and holds it under Vickers' nose. Richard Aiken and Kenneth Sullivan are buddies, regular G.I. Joes, straight out of every war movie. Aiken glares at the carnage, calmly chewing on a wad of gum.
You ever eat roadkill, Sullivan?
Aiken, a guy with a brain your size would be better off dead.
Want me to shoot you, Aiken?
Rosie Rodriguez, a tough, body-built babe, steps in.
I'm ready to shoot somebody.
I'll pass. Shoot Sullivan.
Forrest Speyer, a wiry Willem Dafoe type, finds a bloody beret and brings it to Wesker. There's an ID tag on the brim. Valentine. Radio Washington, Bravo team found on site. No survivors. In the bushes, Chris overhears, but not wanting to believe. He sees Wesker angrily pitch Jill's beret into the brush. We're going in. Watch your backs. Wesker advances his troops. When the coast is clear, Chris rushes in, picks up the beret, and sees the name tag for himself. Valentine. After what happened on the farm, now this. Feeling sucker punched, defeated, Chris hangs his head. One of the Hueys dips in low. Chris looks up. The sight of the war machine lifts him from defeat to rage. His eyes are soft for the last time as he tucks Jill's beret into his pack. When he looks up again, those eyes have become newly predatory. He ducks out of sight as the helicopters swing lower. Downdraft from the rotors make the bushes rustle, catching Chris's attention. He realizes that it's not just the wind. The shrubs are being disturbed by something dark which is moving through them. It pokes its head out. A wolf. Rake was right. Chris readies his Winchester as the animal stalks forward. It's not a wolf. A dog. Mottled, its flesh gray, covered with rotting lesions. It has 3 bleeding bullet holes in its belly, chest, and neck. It roars and leaps at Chris, who fires. Blam! Up ahead, Wesker and his commandos freeze. Who fired? Who fired? Before anyone can answer, the team is attacked by more dogs, which burst out of the surrounding woods, Dobermans and Shepherds. But something is seriously wrong with all of them. Their eyes are dead, their flesh decaying. Automatics piss streams of lead. Hot rounds tear through the animals, many of the slugs accidentally blowing out brains of the bullets as they hit their targets, one of the animals' heads. The commandos are backed up against the iron gates we saw earlier. The Arklay mansion stands beyond.
Let's get inside.
No, I want them all dead. You hear me? Stand fast until they are all dead. The dogs don't stand a chance. Alpha Team's firepower is overwhelming. But there is a human casualty. Joseph Frost trips and falls. One of the dogs pounces on him, chewing out his heart through his back. Wesker steps in, riddling the dead man and the dog with 40 rounds from his M16. In the next instant, another dog leaps at Wesker from behind. He hears his snarl. Too late. He dives out into the grass. Too late. The dog is about to land on him when it's blasted out of midair by Barry.
Even Steven, boss. You saved my ass in the desert. I saved yours in Pennsylvania.
Wesker stands, straightening his ever-present sunglasses. I don't believe in being even Steven with anybody. A man saves my ass, I pay him back. Before this day is over, I'll pay you back, Barry. Just stick with me, okay? Wesker checks his equipment belt. Something is missing. He looks to where he rolled in the grass. Using his flashlight, he finds a small electric unit about the size of a cell phone, but it's not a cell phone. Whatever it is, Wesker clips it onto his belt. From the brush, Chris sees all of this. The guns have gone silent. The attack seems to be over. Chris moves stealthily to the body of the animal that he shot. It's wearing a collar that reads Spike number 26. Along with the ID, there's a corporate-looking logo, the symbol of an umbrella. Another growl as a dog advances on Chris. He aims his Winchester. Click. The magazine is empty. No time to reload. The dog is on him. Chris scrambles away. The dog bounds after him. Chris drops to the ground. Did he trip? No. He pushes a tree root, which is false. It swings open and he dives in, pulling the root shut over him. The dog arrives an instant later. He lets out an angry howl and is blown away by Rodriguez, who neither saw Chris nor where he went. The forest goes dead quiet. Too quiet. There's not even the chirping of morning birds as Wesker is slapped startlingly in the back by Barry.
Look here, man. I'd follow you into any kind of enemy fire, but these things aren't firing at us. They want us for breakfast. When are you going to tell us what the hell is going on here?
When you need to know. Just do your job, soldier. That's what I'm doing. My job. Wesker pulls a chain from under his shirt. It holds a card the size of a Visa, just like the one Jill found on her secret envelope. But Wesker's isn't blue, it's green. Stepping away from Barry, he slides the card through a slot in the iron gate frame. It buzzes and the gate swings open with a rusty squeal. Interior tunnel, morning. Chris crawls through a long, dark shaft with earthen walls, a man-made tunnel. Exterior Arklay Forest mansion, morning. At the mansion's front door, a hand-carved monolith of solid oak. Wesker finds another hidden slot and swipes his card. Interior mansion, central hall, morning. Inside, the place looks like a haunted house. A glorious ruin, once spectacular, now mysterious and threatening. The chandeliers and furniture are covered with sheets that ripple into breezes with 1,000 faults of old walls. Indistinct noises echo from within the ceiling, the floor, as Alpha Team enters.
Old. They probably don't have cable.
They probably don't have radio.
Who's they? Whose place is this?
Wesker shuts the front door. The booming sound makes us wonder if we'll ever see it open again. Guy named Arklay. Bootlegger. Built this old fortress during Prohibition. He figured nobody ever find him out here in the backwoods. Nobody did. Till he died. Feds have had it ever since. Place has been here for 80 years. Derelict. A safe house.
A safe house. For who? For what?
There's a secret installation. Below. A network of laboratories.
What kind of laboratories?
Yeah. They didn't issue us gas masks, so I figure it's okay to breathe.
Why send in a strike force?
Yeah, what are we supposed to do? Polish the silver?
There's a man downstairs. A top priority man. That's our job, to bring him out. Hopefully, there are others alive as well. We'll rescue them too, if we can. But Dr. John Marcus, he comes out alive at any and all cost. Interior mansion corridor morning. Though it's still morning, the windows are sealed over. No sunshine can enter. From this point on, there will be no indication of time except as shown on clocks. A sense of dread takes a hold of us as dark shadows lurch, feet scrape sluggishly, not in combat boots, but in Nikes, loafers, Doc Martens, past an accordion gate of corroded bronze. A motor hums. Behind the gate, an old-fashioned service elevator rises, but stops just below the floor level. Eyes peer out, waiting for the shuffling feet to pass. Then the car rises to the rest of the way, revealing the occupant, Jill Valentine. She's alive. She deactivates the elevator by pulling her blue access card out of an incongruously modern receptacle. Checking to be sure that the coast is clear, she slides the accordion gate aside and steps out into the corridor. With a ghostly moan, something lunges out at her from the shadows. It's a man in a lab coat. His skin is rotting, his teeth snapping, just like the dog's. He tries to bite Jill, not merely to do injury. He seems hungry. Jill leaps aside, lifting her pistol and firing. Once, twice, 3 times. The man is shot in the stomach, heart, and neck, but he keeps coming. Finally, Jill shoots him in the head, and he falls. Jill quickly reloads, on instinct, but as she does it, she stares at the corpse, frowning, weighing lifelong belief against the hideous fact of the moment. Interior mansion central hall morning. Wesker and his troopers hear the gunshots. There are 3 doors nearby. Wesker selects one that seems to lead at the source of the gunshots. Using his card, he unlocks it. All right, 3 men stay here. Chambers?
I'm not a man.
Rodriguez?
I'm better than a man.
Wesker grins but barely skips a beat. All right, you come with us. Aiken, Sullivan, stick right here with Chambers. The troops move out. Aiken and Sullivan remain in the central hall with Rebecca.
Why us?
I don't know why me. You? I guess the CO figures you're as worthless as a dame, Aiken.
Sullivan catches Rebecca's eye.
Sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean... I meant Aiken, not you. Relax. I get it.
Interior library, mansion library. Wesker leads his troops into an enormous cobweb library lined with bookshelves, but no books. There are doorways on all 4 walls. Wesker pulls out something that looks like a Game Boy. He taps on the keypad. A map of the mansion appears. Wesker strolls with arrow keys. Barry looks on, very impressed with the high-tech unit.
That thing tells you where to go.
Wesker doesn't answer. He simply pockets the Game Boy. 1 man stays here. Ridley, you're it. Shoot to kill. Just make sure it's not one of us. The rest of you, this way. Wesker leads the squad through the doorways. Ridley, a young rookie, remains. Interior underground cavern. Chris reaches the end of an earthen tunnel, and there are signs that children once played here. Toy soldiers, graffiti. Chris finds his nickname, Christopher Reddy, etched into the hardened mud. After a moment of reflection, he moves on into an entry chamber, a small sheetrock chamber. Chris rushes to the door that looks like it's been there since the beginning of time. As soon as he touches the knob, an alarm sounds. Interior mansion kitchen. Ridley, standing guard, hears the alarm. He hears Chris jiggling the knob, but he sees no door. The wall around him seems to be solid slabs. Interior entry chamber. Chris can't get the doorknob to turn. Behind him, a dusty oriental carpet bulges upward. One corner flops aside. In the kitchen, Ridley is spooked by the sound. Frightened, trembling, he unslings his rifle.
Who's there?
Entry chamber. Chris doesn't hear the trooper. Behind him, a decomposed hand pokes out of a drainage ditch beneath the carpet. It gropes, finds purchase on the floor. Chris is unaware of the danger. He hurls himself against the door. He can't break through. The thing that climbs out of the ditch was once a man, once a scientist. It's wearing a lab coat and a pair of thick eyeglasses, but it's long dead. It's a zombie. As it pulls itself up, its eyeglasses strike the side of the ditch. They fall, clattering, the rims scraping the zombie's cheek, which peel away like onion skin. Chris hears the noise, turns, and sees the dead man, reaching out hungrily. Chris is trapped. He aims his Winchester. Click. He forgot. It's empty. The zombie pulls itself up and onto the floor. Chris digs into his shoulder bag, pulls out a handful of bullets, and with them, accidentally, Jill's beret. Rising emotion stops him for a moment. The dead man crawls towards him. Chris might not have the time to load. As he tries to jam a bullet into his rifle, the zombie swats at him, catches the beret, looks at it, sniffs it. The bullet pops out of Chris's nervous fingers. He tries to load another. Interior mansion kitchen. Ridley spots a blue access slot in the wall. He levels his automatic and chews the thing up with a short burst. The panel swings open. Chris dives out with the zombie inches behind him. Ridley fires off another short burst of rounds. Stray bullets pierce the zombie's head. It drops back into the chamber, and Ridley never knowing why. Ridley and Chris look at each other, asking rapid-fire questions, none of them answering.
Who are you?
Who are you? What the hell is stars?
How'd you get in here?
Who sealed the door?
Who knew there was a door?
Wham! Another zombie appears suddenly behind Ridley, biting out the muscle between his shoulder and neck. The trooper stands stunned for a moment.
Who?
Then he drops. The zombie, in uniform, once a security guard, gazes dully at Chris. The wet sound comes from inside its gullet as it calmly chews on Ridley's flesh. Swallowing, it reaches out. Chris grabs its arms, flings it into the chamber, then fires his Winchester once, cutting a hole into the thing's head. Chris slams the door. Interior mansion dining room. In the Hearst-sized dining room with draped furniture, Wesker and the other troopers have heard the new gunfire.
Now, where did that come from? Back where we just were. Shit, man. We're chasing our tails.
Interior mansion kitchen. Chris hears the clattering of the troopers heading his way. What he doesn't hear is a slight crackling in the walls. Mansion corridor. Wesker and his team burst into the corridor with an old-fashioned elevator. Flashlights find the body of the zombie that was shot by Jill, bullet holes all over its body.
Damn son of a bitch took a lot of lead. That's not what killed him. Blood's still running. Wounds are flesh, but look at the skin. This guy's been dead for a couple days.
He was dead before he was shot?
Interior mansion kitchen. Chris checks Ridley. No pulse. His rustling movements prevent him from hearing that soft crackling sound. The kitchen is lined with 50-year-old ivy-patterned wallpaper. The printed vines seem to be moving. Chris doesn't notice until the vines seem to wiggle furiously and rip through the paper. They're real. Sprouts from some sort of exotic plant have climbed up the walls with intelligence. They seem to be aware of Chris's presence.
Ridley?
Rebecca has appeared in the open doorway. Chris looks at her, with the tips of the vines beginning to brush his shoulders.
Who are...
I'm one of the good guys, okay? I'm just trying to...
Sullivan! Aiken!
Shit.
Chris, familiar with the room, opens a small door in the wall, barely man-sized and almost invisible because it's covered in matching wallpaper. Chris dives in. Aiken and Sullivan pop up behind Rebecca, having barely caught a glimpse of Chris.
Who is that?
Forget him. What are they?
Sullivan points at the vines, which are swirling, groping as if alive, making their way towards Ridley's body. Interior mansion chute. It's a laundry chute. In a laundry chute, propping himself up against the sides, Chris descends down, as he did when he was a child, and comes into a crawl space, timeless, in a drop ceiling, newly installed. Iron frames support air filtration systems and other heavy machinery. Sheet metal walls have replaced the old soffit and fascia. Light from somewhere below knifes through the griddled iron vents.
Somebody did some major remodeling.
Interior mansion kitchen. The vines continue to advance.
We gotta get him out.
The troopers rush to retrieve Ridley's body. The vines hover around him, occasionally darting, then pulling back as if they were timid animals, hungry but afraid of a new food dish. When Aiken, brandishing his M16, the vines recoil and retract fully, thwip, 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 behind the wallpaper and down, somewhere into the bowels of the house.
What, smart fucking plants?
No big deal. Most plants are smarter than you, Aiken.
Interior mansion corridor. The others are still puzzled over the downed zombie.
Why would anyone shoot a dead man?
Let me guess. Maybe because he was walking around?
Barry steps closer to the corpse, notes its collapsed skull.
Headshot. We were spraying those dogs outside, but think about it. Were any of them brought down without a headshot?
Wesker has been exploring the corridor. Stopping in front of the elevators, he shines his light into the car. We expect something, or someone, to be lurking inside. An attack comes from the opposite direction. A figure bursts out of the shadows behind Wesker. Another zombie? No, it's Jill. In a rage, she holds her pistol to Wesker's head.
I lost 3 men. You killed them, Wesker. You did. And I did. Because I didn't know what to expect. Because you didn't tell me.
Tell you what?
Anything. I wasn't told anything.
Put down the gun. Instead, Jill clicks the hammer back. Put down the gun.
Not until...
Release! That's an order, soldier! Jill blinks. Slowly, reluctantly, she lowers the gun. Wesker turns and recognizes her. How did you get in here?
How you doing, Valentine? Good to see ya. Glad you're still alive. Same here, Colonel.
How did you get in here?
The same way those fucking dogs got out. They're their pens. I locked them off.
Good thinking. A voice interrupts at the end of the corridor.
Man down!
The voice is Sullivan's. The troopers run to join him. Last to leave the corridor is Wesker and Jill. Wesker gestures gallantly. Ladies first.
Fuck you.
Interior mansion kitchen. The troopers trickle into the kitchen to find Rebecca kneeling over Ridley's corpse, examining the ragged bite on his neck.
Maybe they're in the house. More of them dogs.
Diameter's too small. It almost looks as if it was done by
A human?
Rebecca looks up. The two women make sisterly eye contact.
Yes, but what kind of human would do something like this?
Not a vegetarian, that's for sure.
Aiken, you'd be better off. There... God damn it. There was a guy, not part of the team. There was some kind of plant that seemed alive. ...
Give me a fucking break.
No shit, it disappeared. Right into the wall.
Rodriguez cringes when he finds a ragged hole in the wallpaper near where she's standing. I guess it's time to spill it. Wesker pulls off his dark glasses for the first time. I can't see shit otherwise.
You're getting CSI Miami vibes.
Pretty much. I don't know much more than I've already told you, but I'll tell you the rest now. The labs here were working on special apps for bioengineering materials.
Speak English, hombre. Oh, I might have to add an accent. Is that racist? Never mind. No accent.
Marcus has been experimenting with an artificial man-made virus, codenamed the T-virus. Financing came from private corporation. You may have heard of the name. Umbrella.
They're multinational, huge.
So huge that they have connections in high places. That's why we're here.
This virus, it jumped, right? Shit! We're all dead! We got the bug and we're all dead!
It's not airborne. It was spread in the water supply. Lab animals and the researchers themselves passed it on by
biting.
Wesker hangs his head. It's an affirmation.
You catch this virus and what?
You die. But not for long. The chemical revives the brain. And
You stand back up and chew on the first guy you see.
Christ! This is like Night of the Living Dead!
Subtle.
Why in the name of Jesus would anybody want to mess with shit that does that shit?
victory, friend. Civilization has come a long way, but we still have war. Imagine a soldier who can't die. That was the concept.
But the virus jumped.
Hopefully, if we got all the dogs, we've contained it.
Hopefully. Jesus. Why didn't you tell us?
By telling you now, I've put your lives in jeopardy. Nobody has this information except for a few high and mighties, me, and now you. The troopers fall silent as all of this sinks in. We have to get Marcus out of here. He developed this thing. He's the only one who understands it.
I don't know. This all sounds pretty shaky to me.
With a lightning move, Wesker draws his pistol and blam, fires at Rebecca. She flinches. The bullet flies past her and shatters the skull of Ridley, the dead trooper who, having stood up, was about to attack Rebecca from behind. Ridley drops, dead again.
Guess that proves it. A headshot knocks him down.
Rebecca turns and looks at the blood-spattered body.
That man was dead. I'm a doctor. I should know. That man was dead.
Vickers reaches into Rebecca's bag, pulls out an ammonia capsule, cracks it, and holds it under her nose.
I hope you have a lot of these.
Interior crawl space. Chris crawls through the drop ceiling and into the uprising light from one of the vents. He looks down into the grid work and sees the same laboratory that was behind Marcus at the opening video. No longer pristine, it's wrecked, torn apart. Files are scattered everywhere along with smashed fragments of furniture and computer hardware. Cages that line the walls are filled with lab animals making nervous chatter. Chris watches a monkey sip water from a dish. Like the other animals, its skin is rotting. Chris is about to move on when his eyes catch movement outside of the cages. There's a man in a lab coat sitting at a desk writing on a notepad.
Hey,
Close on a man's hand, flaking, decomposing. The pen that holds it is only making random, erratic marks.
hey!
The man turns his head, slowly, to look up towards the voice. There's nothing left of his face. Raw tissue seeps odd-colored fluids. A single eyeball is nestled tenuously in the ooze. Something like a mouth, recognizable only because of its position, opens and groans. Chris, pumping his Winchester, hears crang, a noise from below. He looks down again, just as the lab door bursts open. Wesker and the Alpha team stream into the lab. The thing with the destroyed face turns toward the invaders, stands, and shuffles towards them. Without hesitation, Wesker, on point, fires a quick burst into the thing's brain. It drops like a sack. The lab animals shriek. The team files in, not noticing another zombie, crawling across the floor, heading directly for Spire. Chris shouts.
Heads up!
He punches out the grate with the barrels of his rifle, and blam, punches a surefire hole in the zombie's head. Brad Vickers, his nerves badly frayed, thinks the team is being attacked. He sprays the ceiling with his automatic. Chris ducks and rolls, narrowly escaping the initial barrage, but bullets keep coming, punching a dotted line up through the ceiling panels. Chris scrambles as fast as he can, his feet barely keeping up with the punch holes. He finds himself on top of an enormous checkerboard of vents and plexiglass panels. Bullets weaken the framework. It sags, then cracks, dropping away. Chris is plunged into a lab. A-level. Water. Chris kicks, paddles with his rifle, righting himself, getting his bearings. He's in a huge aquarium that's been built in one of the laboratory's walls, and he's not alone. There are 6 sharks in the tank. Zombie sharks, their flesh rotting, leaking pus. The largest of them snaps at Chris, but its jaws catch only a clump of his swirling hair. Chris kicks with his feet, remaining upright, and fires his wet Winchester. The bullet wimps out, restrained by the water. It penetrates the shark, but barely. We can see the casing lodged in the animal's flesh. Chris gets an idea. He kicks forward, plants the barrel against the Winchester directly against the aquarium glass, only to find himself aiming directly at Jill, who's aiming back at him with her M16. They're both stunned. They stare at each other for a moment, like gunfighters, until another shark circles in for an attack. Chris swings the Winchester away from Jill and fires underwater. The aquarium glass cracks, but holds.
Hang on, we're gonna get wet.
Jill fires. More cracks, but the glass is resistant. Chris out. Water surges into the lab, knocking Wesker and some of his squad down. They stand up again, only to find themselves knee-high in a dark pool with shark fins slicing the surface. Everyone opens fire. The dead fish keep coming.
Where the fuck is a shark's brain?
In its head? I swear, Aiken, you would be better off dead.
In a bizarre frenzy, the sharks kick their tails, making startlingly quick turns, darting every which way, snapping at the scent of warm flesh. The troopers, hampered by the water, splash around wildly, many of them nearly getting bitten. The air above thickens with a fog of graphite and 10 spitting automatics. The water gets darker as it becomes clouded with blood, but thankfully the level is dropping. The water is seeping out through grates in the floor. The sharks become more visible, moving slower as their bellies scrape the floor. The troopers pick them off one by one. The immediate threat passes, but as the water drains away, the troopers become aware of a klaxon-like sound, another alarm. The entry door slides shut with a boom. Nice, very nice, Valentine. You set off a containment breach.
It must have been the water. God, the water! Did you swallow any?
I did.
A bunch of us did, man.
Separate systems. Salt water, no germs. But it breached. Wesker looks crazed. His sunglasses gone. He's typing into his Game Boy, getting no response. We can go in deeper, but we can't get out. Not with my key card.
So we live here now.
Rosie finds Sullivan looking at her curiously.
Landlords, shithills, kicked my family out of 6 apartments. I got used to saying, so, we live here now.
There are override exits, but I can't find any of them with this. Wesker flings his Game Boy angrily against a wall. It shatters into pieces.
That was a smart move.
Wesker bristles. He's about to confront Chris when he spots his sunglasses where they were deposited on a floor grate by the water. He walks over to them, wipes the lenses on his shirt, and without looking at Chris, he asks, and, you are?
Nobody. Just a local guy.
Chris spots a dry lab coat hanging on a wall hook. He takes it down and uses it to dry his rifle.
Who gets pissed off when he finds his farm animals and his father's oldest friend dead, and the only woman he ever cared about turns out to be a goddamn metalhead. What is that?
Wesker, while seeming to understand, still doesn't look up. Valentine, who is this asshole?
His name is Chris Redfield. He was part of my cover, sir.
Cover?
A snappy argument develops, a lover's quarrel with higher than normal stakes.
This is not the time to mouth off, Chris. You're in deep shit here.
Why didn't you let me in on this?
Why did you have to come after me? How did you get in here anyway?
I used to play here. This was a fucking laundry room. And what makes you think I came after you?
Oh, look here.
Barry is stooped over the faceless zombie that Wesker shot. He rips the ID badge from the corpse's coat. He tosses it to Wesker and reads the ID. Dr. J. Marcus.
Is this the pile of shit we're supposed to bring out here?
It once was.
I got something here.
Brad has been quietly working at one of the lab's computers. Barry rushes over and looks at the monitor screen.
A map, same as on your gizmo, whatever. Exit marks, blue and green.
Wesker steps in for a look. The greens are the overrides. Can you print this out?
I can try.
Chris calmly retrieves the wet shoulder bag from the floor. He wrings out the cloth and, using the lab coat, wipes the bullets dry.
We're on level A.
We have to get down to level D.
Hold on, Marcus is dead. If this mission was about bringing him out, we're out of here, right?
I wish we were, but no. We have a potential outbreak here. We might be the only ones who can stop it.
Stop it, how?
There's an antidote. Everyone's ears perk. We can't bring Marcus out, but we can bring out the serum. Maybe somebody can analyze it and figure out how to beat the virus. Jill looks at Chris, catching him weighing options.
Not simple.
Not complicated either. We only have to decide what's right and what's wrong.
I forgot. You're never confused, so what's right, Mohawk, and what's wrong?
Shit. There's no green exits on this level. Why would that be?
They don't want anyone up here to go snooping, upstairs or down.
Wesker looks at Chris with that odd, confident smile. Pretty good guess. You must have been in the military, son.
Native American, exempted.
Fuck. There's no way out.
Yes, there is.
Chris points to the broken grid above the shattered aquarium. Wesker looks up, then back at Chris. Not a bad idea. See if you can call up service charts, schematics. Brad's fingers fly. He scrolls through menus.
Got it. Ceiling grids, ladders, the whole infrastructure.
Print it. Print all of it. The young man types a command. Wesker rushes over to the HP and grabs the first chart that rolls out. Rebecca steps over to Brad. She points at his leg. Seated at the computer, his trousers hiked. Blood can be seen on his sock just above his boot.
What's that from?
I snagged it on the desk when we were scrambling.
Look at it.
No, it's just a scratch.
Chris watches Wesker as he studies the printed charts.
There's a part of an old laundry chute. It might not be shown here. It runs up to the kitchen.
I'm not going up. I'm going down. Wesker, grim-faced, looks at the team. I'd like to let you guys off the hook, but I can't. I need backup, and you're coming with me. Any objections? The troopers exchange glances. Jill is the first to speak.
No objections. We'll back you up.
You said people wind you up and you do whatever they want you to do.
Stay out of this, son. You're the only one who doesn't have a choice in this. There's no place to lock you up, and I can't let you go. You're a security risk. I could shoot you, legally, but your lady friend will probably get all over my ass. So I'm afraid you're coming with us whether you like it or not. He's your responsibility, Valentine. See that he doesn't make trouble. Jill looks at Chris.
You up to the challenge?
Try me.
I already have.
Interior crawl space. One by one, the members of Alpha Team wiggle into the crawl space above the ceiling. Chris climbs up behind Jill. Other troopers are already away, following Wesker, who guides them with the help of his chart. Jill starts after them. Chris grabs her arm.
Jill, I'm sorry. I'm just angry. When I thought you were gone, then when I saw you alive, I realized that...
That you were still fascinated.
Stop!
He pulls her into an embrace. She goes willingly.
Come with me. We can get out of here.
I want to. I want nothing more, but I can't. When I'm in this uniform, I'm more than just me. Try to understand. There's no I in Team Chris. Say it!
There's no I in dead either.
Chris pulls away from the embrace and looks at her.
I should order you to come with me. You'd never refuse an order.
You go. You're not part of this.
I'm part of it as long as you are.
This is very uncomfortable.
Barry, having overheard, is halfway up through the grate.
For me too, brother.
I mean this. It's very uncomfortable.
Chris and Jill help Barry into the crawl space. They start off after the troop. The camera tracks them.
This is getting old, man. I swear. I've been in this army 18 years.
18 years?
Yep. 2 away from the big retie.
That's job, right? Nobody lasts that long if they've seen action.
I've seen action in Granada and Desert Storm. Would have lost it all there if my buddy didn't bring in a team against orders to pull my ass out. Buddy named Wesker.
You've been with this asshole since?
Since before that, we were kids together. Macon, Georgia. I hope I said that right. He's only an asshole some of the time.
Up ahead, Wesker reaches a service elevator. He wakes his troop on. They start to climb down.
Who knows what we'll find down there?
Think positive. The farther down we go, the worse it's going to get. So until we hit bottom, we're in good shape, relatively speaking.
Roar! Distant, but distinct. Kind of sounds like the MGM Lion.
What the fuck?
Again, MGM Lion!
Whatever it is, it can't get us. We're in the ceiling.
Maybe it's like really tall.
Again.
Interior, crawl space, lab, level B. The lead troopers reach another section of the ceiling. Clustered around a vent, they look down into the B-level lab. More streamlined, more high-tech than the one upstairs. There are large computers linked by a metal ceiling conduit that is jacked into the wall. It's the mainframe. Might have some data we could use. Yeah. Fox, Marini, Vickers, down. Wesker kicks out the vent. He jumps first, through the opening, down into the lab. Chris watches behind him.
The man has balls. I'll say that.
Wesker grabs a desk and pushes it out of the vent. Marini climbs down, followed by Fox. Brad is last. Hustle it, Vickers. You're the guy we need to cut into the network. Interior lab level B. Wesker looks around. There are 3 doorways, open wide with only darkness beyond. Wesker runs around closing them. Watch these entrances, boys. Fox and Marini take up posts. Brad lowers himself gingerly. He drops the last 2 feet onto the desk, landing on his bloody leg.
Ah, shit.
He topples, falling onto the floor, but pops up instantly.
I'm all right.
He limps over and attacks the computer keys. Roar! Another distant snarl. Hold tight. It doesn't sound like it's on this level.
Shit, I'm locked out. Any clues for a password?
Try umbrella. Brad types rapidly, nervously. Flubs types again.
Nothing. Wait, I'm into... No data. Just some kind of video feed, time-coded. Yesterday. It's a playback. Holy shit.
We hear it before we see it. The sound of absolute panic. People shouting, screaming, thuds and crashes, glass breaking, and a woman's voice.
Please, please, if anyone is receiving this.
Brad limps around the desk and spins the monitor for the others to see. The woman is Asian. She's standing in the foreground as Marcus was in the opening video. Behind her is a lab that we haven't seen yet, with white-coated figures running and firing guns.
The situation is completely out of control.
Bam. The woman is pushed out of the way by a man who's trying to protect her from something that blurs past the lens, like a pendulum moving from above. The next instant, splat, the lens is coated with blood. As it oozes down, the partial image of the same man. His head is out of frame at the top of screen. The thing that must have a hold on him because the man is dangling, his arms witching. His back has 3 gouges in it, long and so deep they might have been made by a piece of heavy machinery. We can only see it for an instant before the man is lifted straight up with amazing speed. Wesker clicks off the monitor. The other men instinctively look up above their heads.
Maybe the ceiling's not such a safe place after all.
Crash. The door behind Fox bursts open. Before he has time to react, a zombie is on him, biting his cheek, neck, and shoulder.
Ow!
The two figures fall onto the floor, grappling. Wesker can't get a clean shot. Scram! Scram! Marini is the first to reach the desk, but he helps the limping Brad up ahead of him. 2 more zombies lurch in through the open doorway. Wesker shoots them, but sees more. Can't tell how many, shambling through the open doorway from the darkness beyond. Wesker focuses on Fox, who is still being mauled and bitten. Fox screams. Wesker still has no safe shot. Brad is yanked up into the ceiling by Sullivan and Aiken. Chris leans out of the opening, reaching for Marini. Wesker kicks the mauling zombie in the head. It takes 3 hard boots to attract the thing's attention. When it finally looks up at him, Wesker blows off its skull. Fox is lying on his stomach, writhing, bleeding profusely from a half-dozen bites. Wesker stoops down, trying to roll him over and lift him up. Fox resists. He's gone insane. Chris pulls Marini up to safety. Barry leans down through the opening.
Haul ass, boss!
The zombies are heading for Wesker. There are 3 of them. Barry shoots the one in front, misses. His second shot hits the thing's brain. Wesker tries again to hoist Fox, who this time rolls over on his own. He's drawn his pistol. Before Wesker can stop him, he eats the barrel and blows out the back of his head. One zombie is dangerously close. Barry fires 2 more rounds. No headshots, but the zombies stagger, and, though not dead, falls directly towards Wesker. The colonel rolls on his back, kicking himself away and managing to get clear. He uses his own pistol to blast the zombie. He scrambles to his feet, darts towards the desk, and jumps up. The 3rd zombie grabs his legs. From above, Barry risks a dangerous shot. Bam! Wesker hears the bullet whiz past his face like a mosquito. The zombie is hit in the skull. It drops. There are more of them coming out of the darkness. Barry takes a hold of Wesker and with a single strong arm pulls him up into the crawl space, where Wesker breathes heavily for a moment, then looks up at his old friend. That's 2 I owe you.
1. We're all even Steven.
2. Remember, even Steven, it's not in my vocabulary. A horrible moaning sound comes from below in the lab. 3 more zombies can be seen clustering around the desk, dumbly trying to climb up, sensing the food above. Let's move. Wesker takes off. Speyer, Rodriguez, Aiken, and Sullivan are quick to follow. The others lag behind when Chris says,
Those things could get up here. We can't let that happen. This is our way out.
Chris swings his legs through the grate and jumps down onto a desk. He boots one of the zombies away and tries to leap over the others. One of them catches his foot in midair. Chris isn't hurt, but he topples to the floor, sprawling, losing his Winchester. The zombies have him cornered. He crawls towards his rifle, reaches it, pumps a shell into the firing chamber, aims at the closest to the Walking Dead, which is once a young man, a simple laborer wearing overalls with a name tag.
Caruso.
Chris looks empathetically at the thing's dead eyes.
Can you hear me?
The zombie lumbers hungrily forward.
Caruso! Can you hear me?
Chris has come late to the realization that these things were once human. Now he comes late. Yeah, it's the same sentence again. Oh, now he comes late to the realization that they are human no longer. The zombies grab the barrel of the Winchester, pushing it aside. Chris can't bring it back to bear on the monster's head. He blasts around through the thing's belly. It has no effect. The zombie reaches for Chris's throat. It starts to lean in to bite him. Blam! The thing's skull explodes. Jill has jumped down onto the desk. She fires another accurate pistol round. The second zombie falls. Jill leaps to the floor and starts to push the desk. Chris gets to his feet, running to help her. Together, they shove the desk out from under the open ceiling grate.
Thank you.
Anytime. How do we get back up?
Shit. If you didn't have a plan, you shouldn't have jumped down here.
We have a real problem here, Chris.
Jill nods towards the open doorway. There are more stuttering figures approaching in the dark.
How big is this place? How many people are down here? How?
How do we get up?
The startling sound. A dark shape swings down from above and grabs Jill. Is it the thing we saw in the video? No, it's Barry. His mighty arms swing and lift Jill. She's caught by Aiken and Sullivan as they pull and swing her up to safety. Barry grabs Chris and lifts him up as well. Interior crawl space lab, level B. Chris grabs the edge of the grate and pulls himself up. He reaches down back through the opening. Below, Barry squats and makes a mighty leap with his muscular legs. Chris grabs his arms and is nearly pulled back down.
Big. Heavy.
Jill grabs on, then Sullivan. But one of the zombies has reached Barry. It grabs his kicking legs. Its teeth snap and catch. The commandos lift Barry clear, but the zombie ends up with a chunk of something in its mouth.
He got you.
Barry checks his leg. His trousers are torn, but...
No skin broken. I'm all right.
We owe you a pair of pants.
They crawl away. The zombies below reach up, their fingers clutching at the ceiling. But with the desk gone, there's no way they can get up. Dissolve to storage area. The commandos climb down to a steel access ladder into the storage room stacked with crates and cartons. There is only one door. The place seems secure. Stand down. 5 minutes. Wesker sits on a crate and pulls out his printed chart. Gradually, the whole group makes it down to the room. They relax. A few light cigarettes, but not spare.
I'm through, Wesker.
Oh, I didn't think of a voice for this person. Me too, man. This ain't nothing. I signed for.
You want to wait here? Fine.
Wait here? No, we're getting out.
You can't. Not without this.
Fuck you and your fancy doors and your green key. The choppers have rockets. They can blow out a wall if they have to. I'm calling them in.
Speyer pulls out his radio and starts to punch in a code. You want to see a wall blow? I'll blow all of them for you. Wesker reaches down to the electronic unit that he lost and retrieved in the woods. He pulls out a long wire from it with a small sensor on one end. I'll put a crater in this forest that takes out Raccoon City and everything else for 20 miles with this. He jams the little sensor into his ear and pushes a button on the belt unit. A small red light blinks. It's a radio detonator to set off explosives that are, well, buried underneath us somewhere. The ultimate containment measure. Incinerate the place. It has a dead man mechanism. It reads my pulse. My heart stops and boom.
You, ellipses, lunatic. That damn thing can slip out of your ear by accident.
That's right. It's your job, all of your jobs, to see that it doesn't. And to see that my heart doesn't skip any beats. Wesker looks over the top of his sunglasses at Speyer. Now give me the radio, soldier. Speyer hesitates. Wesker explodes for the first time. Give me the fucking radio or we all go up! Shocked silence. Sullivan is the first to speak.
Some bitch might do it, Speyer.
I'll be obliged to do it. If I don't get the antidote, I'll have to burn this place out. Valentine, the radio. Jill steps over to Speyer and takes the radio from him.
What are you? This guy's flunky? He just threatened to blow us all up, for Christ's sake.
That's what I'm trying to prevent.
Exterior Arklay Forest in the air. The helicopter, or one Huey, is in the air. The camera moves on a window. LaGuardia is flying, his radio man beside him.
How many digits did you receive?
6. The beginning of an air support code, but it just went dead on me.
Call Stars in Washington. I want...
Hold it.
The radio man presses his headset to his ear. LaGuardia looks on apprehensively.
It's Wesker. Yes, sir. We got the signal, sir. He says it was a mistake.
Call Washington anyway. I want the authority to take action if necessary.
Interior office. Ring. A man with an ostentatious ring snatches a red telephone receiver from a desk drawer.
Holden.
He listens. Once again, we don't see his face, just his free hand with another Monte Cristo burning.
Denied. This is Wesker's show. If he was in real trouble, we'd have lost half of Pennsylvania by now.
As the hand flicks ash, we see a sheet of paper on the desk with a letterhead that bears an umbrella logo.
No authorization.
Exterior, Arklay Forest, in the air, day. In the Huey, the radio man clicks off the incoming call.
No independent action.
Damn. I feel so fucking helpless.
The Huey flies over the mansion, which, from the air, looks as stable as the Rock of Gibraltar. Interior storage area. Wesker has come down off of his rampage. He looks exhausted. He also looks staunchly heroic as he speaks to his troops. You guys were handpicked. A special unit. Most of you have been sitting on your asses, drawing paychecks for more than 2 years. Well, time to repay those government loans.
Bullshit. I'm not.
Wesker lifts his automatic. Speyer flinches. The action wasn't meant to be a threat. Wesker is just checking his ammo. Pitch your empties. Put all your loaded clips on that crate there. I want to count. And then I want the rounds divvied up. Evenly. The troops deposit their loaded clips, reloading the ones that are half used. All right, we're on level C.
Lingerie, notions.
God damn it, no more jokes! We have men dead upstairs. This hellhole is full of people who died because of this stinking bug. Gil has been counting the ammo clips.
42.
That's all we have?
We weren't expecting a war, Speyer. I'll take 3. 3 to your boyfriend.
Don't need him. Got my own loads.
Wesker's eyes dart angrily towards Chris until he notices Jill watching him, and he calms himself. Good. Then we all get 4 clips.
We must have weapons down here somewhere. A powder magazine.
No more side trips. It was a mistake to go into that lab upstairs. My mistake. I'm not making another one. From now on, straight ahead, in and out. Wesker stands and opens the door. Outside is a service corridor with unfinished walls. Spaces between the raw metal beams are stuffed with insulation. Wesker checks the jab outside. It's got a lock mechanism. Blue. Not the override. My key won't work here on the way out. Prop the door. The troopers drag a heavy crate over to the door to hold it open. Wesker moves out. The commandos trickle after him. Chris holds up Jill behind for a moment.
Jill, this guy's a Looney Tune.
He's just trying to get the job done, doing what he has to do.
Yeah, well, I hope he'll say the same about me when I do what I have to do.
Chris turns and walks off. Jill follows him out into the corridor. They catch up with a troop that is clustered by a blind alley and 2 corridors. It's not clear which way to go.
Want me to flip a coin?
Wesker is annoyed by the remark. Decisively, he selects one of the doors and uses his green keycard. With a buzz, the lock releases and the troop enters a vast room, 50 by 50 yards. It's filled with heaters, air conditioners, and water pumps. Main fumes for the internal computer networks line one wall. Fuse boxes and switches and panels line another. This is the system center of the entire facility. There is an attendant's desk inside the door. Aiken and Sullivan drag it over to prop the door open. It makes a frightening sound as it scrapes the floor, echoing, bouncing around in the large space. It prompts a response, another of those animal-like snarls from somewhere in the distance.
What's that sound like to you?
A meat eater.
There are thick columns floor to ceiling every 10 feet. The space between them is very dark. It's hard to see. Wesker and some of the others click on their flashlights. Beams cut through the dust. There's electric hums, click and chatter emit from the switches, pings from the heaters, all combining to fray on everyone's nerves. Light beams dance nervously as the commandos start out across the dark and frightening space.
This is the heart of the whole place. They've got to have it protected somehow.
Two things happen almost at once. First, Chris notices electric eyes on all of the columns.
Duck, hit the deck.
Second, a zombie lurches around the corner and bites a chunk out of Marini's face. Jill whirls around to shoot at the zombie, but Chris grabs her and flattens her on the floor. Marini, staggering, screaming in pain, triggers the first electric eye. Laser beams shoot out in all directions, forming a tight net. Chris and Jill are barely beneath them. Many of the other troopers are hit by the beams, which do no immediate harm, but wherever they make contact, small cylinders above the electric eye begins to hiss.
Christ's sakes, get down!
Commandos duck onto the laser beams just in time. Jets of steam spout from the cylinders. It's not just hot steam, it's acidic, deadly. Marini is hit by it. His clothes ignite. His flesh boils. It's a horrible sight. But for the moment, the jets stop. Marini is dead on his feet. When he falls, he trips another over the laser beams. The steam jet spouts again. The troop is beneath them, though many are burned by liquid drops and spit from the nozzles. Amazingly, the zombie has avoided contact. But as it begins to stumble after commandos, we realize it's going to activate the sensors again.
There's no way out of this mousetrap.
So we live here now?
We gotta run for it.
The zombies hit one of the laser beams. The steam hisses out again. The zombie is melted.
Bad idea, Spare.
Down through these.
Chris has noticed a series of hinged panels on the floor.
Where do they go?
Does it matter?
Sullivan whips out a Swiss Army knife and goes to work on the screws that hold down the panels. Other troopers do the same. Another zombie lurches out of the darkness, and another. Human hands work furiously, loosening screws. Panels come up. Troopers begin to duck through the openings. A second zombie hits a red beam. Steam again. Chris and Jill are spattered, burned. But Jill bravely keeps working with her own issued knife. She gets the panel open. As she drops through, a third zombie triggers a burst of steam. Chris ducks and covers. When the jet stops, Chris begins to climb into the opening, but one of his legs is grabbed from behind by one of the dead things that has already been melted. Its flesh is bubbling. Bone is beginning to show, but the acid hasn't reached its brain yet. The creature is still alive. Chris cries out. Acid from the zombie's hands is burning his leg. The thing's lips have been eaten away, making its teeth look frighteningly skeletal as it leans forward for a bite of flesh. Chris jams the stock of his Winchester into the zombie's mouth. He's able to hold the thing's head back, but he's struck. He can't let go. Jill pops out of the floor. She presses the barrel of her own weapon to the zombie's forehead.
On 3.
1, 2.
Chris pulls his rifle away. In the same instant, Jill fires. The zombie is propelled through the air. One of his flailing arms triggers another laser beam. Chris throws himself in on the top of Jill as steam hisses over them. 20 yards away, Wesker crawls under the cloud of acid. Just as he climbs out down through one of the openings, he feels pressure on his ear. A groping zombie has accidentally hooked his fingers into the wire that runs from the detonator into Wesker's earpiece. For a breathless moment, it seems like the sensor will be popped loose. Holding the pulse reading sensor in place, Wesker twists his body, lifts his handgun, and pumps 3 rounds into the dead thing's brain. The zombie flops over, but its fingers cling entangled into the wire. Wesker plants the pistol barrel on the knuckles of the thing's dead hand. 3 more shots cut through bone, removing the fingers from the hand. The wire is freed. Wesker dives into the opening in the floor. Interior air duct. The commandos find themselves in an air duct. No room to stand, hardly room to sit. Chris looks at his rifle stock. It's corroded from the acid in the zombie's mouth. Jill notices.
God, it doesn't even stop them.
It's not meant to stop them. It's meant to stop something else.
The distant snarling sound comes again, making Jill shiver. The troop is strung out along a metal shaft. Rebecca crawls among them, treating the worst burns. Wesker checks his maps. Speyer confronts him again.
He damn near got turned into Rice Krispies by that gizmo of yours. If you don't want me to nail that fucking thing into your ear, you deactivate it right now.
I can't. They fixed it so you can't chicken out. The system can only be turned off at the main panel,
Where the hell is that?
where the explosives are. Down further than we need to go. We only have to make it down one more level. When we make it back into the choppers, we can fly out of the detonator's signal range. Chris calls out from the far end of the shaft.
I'm not willing to rely on that. I live here. This is my town.
The town's been evacuated. Just in case.
That explains the lie about the plane crash and airplane down. With weapons on board, would nicely explain a big explosion, wouldn't it? You figured all along you might have to blow this place.
I don't want to. I hope I don't have to. Chris looks down the dim air shaft, unable to see Wesker's eyes, hidden in the distance, and by his dark glasses. That's the best I can do for you, kid. Good faith. Now let's knock on it. Wesker moves out. The troops follow.
I can't let this happen. I've got to find that bomb.
I'll help. Once Wesker gets what he wants, my obligation's over.
Chris looks at her with appreciative eyes.
No, I want you out. With the rest of them. Wesker won't push the button until you're clear.
He doesn't want to push the button.
He has to. Don't you see? He can't leave those labs here. And Jesus. Walking corpses.
Okay.
He has to. Don't you see? He can't leave those labs here. And Jesus. Walking corpses. He's got to get rid of the evidence.
Interior air shaft. The light is dim at its best. Long stretches of the shaft are pitch black, and there's a constant stream of air that moans eerily. The whole mission has been like a descent into hell, darker and more frightening with each level down. There are turnoffs, T's and Y's. At one point, when Jill looks back, she finds Rosie behind her. Chris is gone. Did he leave to deal with the bomb? No, but he's about to. He's at the rear of the pack, pressed against the sidewall, waving others past.
Chris, no!
To try and stop this.
Jill starts back towards Chris, but freezes. Everyone freezes when the ductwork starts to ping.
Shit. One thing after another.
Boom. The air shaft is rocked, as if punched by a giant fist. Then the whole structure begins to shimmy. What is it, an earthquake? Sit tight, ride it out. Grunk. The sheet metal panel buckles. Others do the same. Along with the shaft, panels begin to fold inward. Something outside is crushing the duct as if it were a giant tube of toothpaste. The troopers are being squeezed inside. Rivets pop. The panels begin to separate, and large, pulsing bits of flesh appear. Not animal flesh, but the flesh of a plant. The thing that presses through the opening are larger versions of the vines that we saw in the kitchen. Those were its fingertips. These are its arms. Strong arms that are ripping the ductwork apart. Chris, Rebecca, and Aiken and Sullivan end up in one part of the shaft, the rest in another, including Jill, who calls out.
Chris!
The section that holds Chris's group falls away with a monstrous crunching sound. Interior arbitorium. Chris's group spills out on the dangling metal with cables from the torn ceiling. They sparkle around them. The troopers drop out of hell into paradise. An enormous hothouse, a lush indoor jungle of plants, ivies, and grasses. It's like a rainforest, complete with thick, damp mist that makes it difficult to see. We might be on another planet. None of the foliage seems indigenous to Earth. There are leaves the size of bed sheets, flowers the size of armchairs, and at the center of it all is the mother of the deadly vines, Plant 42, a monstrous Schefflera, 20 times normal size. Most of its limbs reach upwards where they have opened cracks in the ceiling and walls and stretch into the facility above. There are dozens of shorter, beefier arms which act independently like tentacles of an octopus, and each has a large, drooling pod at its tip. Interior runway, timeless. Bursts of gunfire through 3 M16s shatter our ears and ceiling vent. Wesker and the others jump down onto a very unusual corridor. It seems to stretch forever in both directions. It has no doors, no visible means of exit or entry. The walls are made up of multicolored polymer tiles whose irregular shapes fit together almost like a jigsaw puzzle. The floor is heavy steel. Though faceted, it seems designed to shift. The whole corridor looks like it might be able to bend, to change position, like an airport jetway. There are disconcerting signs of damage, claw-like gouges in the tile, clean-cut holes punched through the metal ceiling, larger in diameter than that might have been caused by bullets. And there are smears of blood everywhere, as if some terrible battle or battles took place here. This way.
No, that way. Chris and the others.
Look, if they're dead, they're dead. If they're alive, they'll still be alive in 20 minutes, when we get back.
Maybe not. And how do we know it's only going to be 20 minutes? How do we know we'll be able to come back this way?
We don't. But we'll do our damnedest to try. This is it, guys. The home stretch. Let's go. Wesker trots off. Vickers and Rodriguez follow. Speyer and Barry hang back, with Jill, who remains torn. Valentine, you're on the clock. Fall in. Jill wrestles with her emotions, but in the end, dutifully, she falls in. As the troopers move off, we hear an odd scratching sound with a high-pitched squeal of metal on metal. Interior Arbitorium. The beefy arms of Plant 42 undulate overhead as Chris and his companions look for an exit.
This thing was no accident. It was cultivated.
And it didn't rip out the ceiling for the fun of it. Stay alert.
The plant seems to behave intelligently, with caution. The pods of the arms dart, almost as if sniffing, then pull back like the vines in a kitchen, like timid animals. Chris spots a doorway.
Here.
As the others follow, and one of the pods swoop down in front of Rebecca and doesn't withdraw. It hovers there. Its follicle open like jaws, which display serrated daggers of cartilage that look like teeth. Inside, a pulsing calyx emits a pistol that twitches and swells.
My mother made me eat vegetables. I know them all. This ain't one of them.
Another pod swoops down on Sullivan's back. Its beak clamps down on the flesh between his shoulder blades. Its pistol shoots out like a hypodermic needle, stabs him, and in the blink of an eye, sucks out every ounce of the man's blood. His skin turns the color of parchment, flaking off him like powder as he dies.
Sullivan! Jesus, Sullivan!
Aiken rushes to his buddy's side.
Get out of the way!
Chris launches himself off of a stone retaining wall around one of the gardens. Leaping up, he grabs one of the sparking conduits and pulls it down.
Get out of there, Aiken!
Chris ends up having to shoulder Aiken out of the way. Tendrils from the plant up nearly every inch of both of them, but Chris manages to jam this semi-rigid conduit into a pool of sprinkler-fed water around the plant's roots. A bright current stutters through every vine. The plant shrieks hideously as electricity causes fluid to squirt from boils that develop on its flesh, along with its arms and into its blood-sucking pods, which flop lifeless to the floor in the same sort of liquid smacks the human skulls might make.
They killed Sullivan. The bastards. Whoever did this shit. They killed Sullivan!
Enraged, Aiken draws a long-bladed knife and wildly attacks the remains of Plant 42, slashing at the thing's dead limbs, not stopping until he cuts into something that looks like a vine, but bleeds red. Aiken traces the thing with his eyes up to where it's coiled in the high tree branches. It's the oversized body of a copperhead, its belly 6 feet in diameter. As Aiken gasps, spellbound, he's stuck from behind. The snake is so long, its body is draped from one side of the greenhouse, but its head is on the other. With the power of a dozer shovel, jaws like the open hood of a Cadillac, teeth the size of windows, clamp down onto Aiken's midsection, instantly crushing his ribs. Chris finds the skeel of rope. He throws it the long end over the ceiling beam and instantly makes a lasso out of a piece on his hand and tosses the loop around the snake's head. Aiken's body in the serpent's jaws makes the rope miss. Chris throws again. In the seconds between tosses, the snake has slurped Aiken into its mouth. The rope encircles the beast's head. Chris pulls. The noose slips down over the snake's maxillaries and tightens around its neck. Chris uses all his strength. Within the ceiling beam as a pulley, the snake's head is slammed against the rafters.
Hold this.
Rebecca is, understandably, not quick to respond.
Get in there, soldier!
In this crisis, Chris finds himself sounding a lot like Wesker. It sobers him. It sobers Rebecca as well. She rushes in and takes a hold of the rope. Moving fast, Chris rushes to where Aiken's knife has dropped to the floor. He grabs it, turns back, and sees something moving inside the snake's beaded torso. It's Aiken, still alive. Chris charges, plunges his knife into the beast, hacking through layers of fat until he reaches a bloody cavity. Aiken is curled within, like Jonah in the whale. His chest has been crushed to half its normal size. Acids from the monster's intestines have begun to eat through the flesh on his hands, his face, but he's still conscious, able to wheeze out words.
Kill me. Sullivan said I'd be better off dead. That ain't never been truer than now. Kill me!
Snake uses all of its strength to lower its head from the ceiling. Rebecca hangs bravely onto the rope, but she's lifted bodily off the floor. The rope snaps, cut by the steel beam. Rebecca falls. The trailing edge of the noose catches on twisted debris. It delays the snake for about 2 seconds. Those fragile seconds give Chris just enough time to reach into the open belly of the monster and pulls the pin on the 2 grenades that dangle from Aiken's vest. The giant copperheads snap at Chris from behind, missing him by inches. He dives like a wide receiver reaching for a pass. What he catches is Rebecca's arm. His momentum carries her down to the floor. They roll down behind another stone wall that contains tons of earth, which protects them from, boom, the explosions of 2 grenades, which blow Aiken and yards of the snake's midsection into eternity. Interior conference room. The same nervous hands that we saw in the opening fidget on the polished surface of the conference room table. A distorted voice scratches onto the speakerphone.
We're close. I think I'll be able to get the package. It's been very interesting.
Anything you can't handle?
There's nothing I can't handle.
A man with an ostentatious ring flicks cigar ash.
Keep us appraised.
Holden's hand clicks off the speakerphone.
I'm reassured, gentlemen, that everything is under control.
Wesker, alone in the strange, faceted corridor, packs away his radio. He hears footsteps, and Jill appears. Where are the others?
Right behind me. Were you talking to someone?
To Washington. To my superiors. They're your superiors too, Valentine. Don't forget that. Jill wonders, should she challenge Wesker? She has no time to think. More footsteps come clacking at the back. It's Rodriguez and Speyer. A moment later, Barry and Vickers appear from the opposite direction.
Nothing, man. No doors, nothing. We hit a dead end. Us too. Cement wall.
Never gonna get to that lab.
Chung, chung, chung. A sound like a rivet gun resounding in the corridor, repetitive, but random, not rhythmic. Interior electric tunnel. Chris and Rebecca are crawling through the 2-foot-high feeder passage for electric cables, their bellies scraping the floor, their backs the ceiling. They hear the sound, chung, 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 and then suddenly, it stops. Can't hear you, Shawn.
I can't take this anymore.
We take what comes. That's the secret of our genius.
He looks back. Rebecca sniffles.
How old are you?
Not very old at all. Not nearly old enough to.
None of us is old enough for that.
Rebecca nods, forcing a smile meant to be appreciative.
Jill told me you were nice.
She did? Never told me.
That sound returns. Chung, chung, chung. Getting louder. Interior runway. Down the corridor, other troops see, faintly in the dusty reaches of the dark, agile shapes advancing, not along the floor, but along the ceiling. They look like apes, swinging from... What could they be swinging from? The ceiling is solid metal. Close on a monstrous hand, both hairy and scaly. Its fingers have 10-inch claws, more like horns, which punch upwards, penetrating the ceiling metal and clamping on. The shot widens to reveal a beast, unlike any we've seen. Dangling from the ceiling, it's ape-like and lizard-like, with ferocious eyes that glare from beneath an insect-like carapace. This thing is an amalgam of all the nasty creatures that have pursued us in our nightmares. It's called a hunter. There are 6 of them. As far as we can see, there might be more coming from behind. Their 3-toed feet also have claws that can pierce the ceiling, enabling them to move forward, hand over foot, foot over hand. One of them lets out a growl, the same sound we've been hearing through the walls. Now it echoes the corridor, up close and personal. The troops open fire, even before the creature can get in range. Interior electric tunnel. Chris and Rebecca hear the gunfire.
Hurry.
Chris crawls on. Rebecca is stopped when... One of the creature's claws punch up through the floor, almost stabbing her. Rebecca screams. In the tight space, Chris is barely able to reach back and take her by the hand. Chung. More claws penetrate the metal. A couple plunge ahead of them, the way Chris plunged ahead of the bullets on level A. Interior runway timeless. Wesker, Jill, and the others spit lead at the advancing creatures. Bullets thunk into their bodies. Blood flows, but the creatures seem to feel no pain, even when they're hit squarely in the skulls.
Headshots! Ain't doing nothing!
That was the idea.
What idea?
To win. The idea was to win. Jill aims at one of the hunters, pressing the trigger of her M16, but not letting go until the clip runs out. The creature's head is turned ragged by the barrage, revealing an iron superstructure beneath the skin.
Now that is a metal head.
Jill looks up. Chris jumps out of an open grate in the ceiling. Rebecca jumps down after him.
What'd you think? Should I wait for orders or just wing it?
Wing it!
You know, that just might be the ticket. Wing the fuckers.
Chris takes a careful shot with his Winchester. He hits one of the hunters squarely in the wrist, which snaps. The creature drops to the floor.
Forget the headshots. They're useless. Shoot for the joints. The joints!
Rebecca opens fire with Aiken's M16, giving the others time to reload. Barry is the first to resume firing at the closest of the hunters, at its wrist, which are snapped by the bullets. The creature drops to the floor. The troopers fire at knees, ankles, elbows, which seem to be the weakest spots. More of the hunters drop from the ceiling, and they continue to advance, crawling, pushing themselves forward with whatever limbs remain intact.
Run! We slowed them down. Run! Where? As far as we'll get. Either way, it's a cement wall.
There are two hunters left on the ceiling. One of them makes a mighty, impossible lunge and hits Speyer like a battering ram, slashing his chest open with his claws. Two of the hunters hit the floor, rush forward, not attacking, but wanting to feed on Speyer's remains. Brad, trembling, completely crazed, drops his weapon and backs away. He sees one of those jigsaw tiles, a red one, glow from within. He thinks he's hallucinating until the floor jerks in a tight spasm. Its steel facets begin to separate, sliding away from each other. The troopers narrowly escape as the floor behind them grinds in and out, left and right, as if it were chewing. Speyer's body and all those hunters on the floor are eaten by the powerful steel blades. But one hunter remains above it all. Chung, chung, chung. It continues to advance along the ceiling. An invisible jigsawed door glides open 20 yards down the hall. The troopers run for it and are met by a beautiful Asian scientist, the woman we saw on the video playback, Ada Wong.
You lost a man. If I'd only been faster. I was unfamiliar with the mechanism.
Chung, chung. The hunter approaches.
God, one of them is still... Quickly, inside, quickly.
The troopers rush into a security cubicle. Chris is the last to enter, barely making it in before the door begins to slide shut. Ka-chung! Claws penetrate the opening.
Don't worry, it's mindless. It doesn't realize that it's strong enough to push the door open.
Sometimes the dumb get lucky.
Hasn't happened to me yet.
The hunter growls. Its snout darkens the space between the door and the wall. Mucus from its nostrils spits through. After a terrifying moment, the claw recedes. The dark snout disappears. The snorting fades away, followed by a distant chung, chung, chung as the hunter departs. Everyone relaxes, visibly. The troopers turn and for the first time notice two haggard scientists standing across the room.
My colleagues, Benjamin, Toshiro, as far as we know, we are the only ones left alive. We worked on sea level. One of the biologists saved us, brought us down here. He knew that he didn't have long to live. He started the mechanism out there in the corridor, and he left it. Take him.
Ada stares at a complicated control panel.
I only saw it used one time, or perhaps I could have been faster. The man you lost.
You did fine, lady. We're obliged.
As are we. We believed we would die here. Believed the bomb would destroy us.
You knew about the bomb?
The end for a place like this when it fails must be a bomb, yes?
Jill looks at Chris. His point has been proven.
But now that you are here, the bomb will not come.
It already came, ma'am. We brought it. The colonel here, he's wearing it.
Ada looks at the detonator on Wesker's belt, at the sequence of blinking lights.
Is it true? Are you here to rescue or destroy?
Both. If I have to pick only one, I'll pick destroy.
You're not stars. You're umbrella.
Once again, both. 2 salaries. 3 if you count combat pay. Ada looks at him with disgust.
The man I loved, John Marcus, developed the organism that caused all this. He did it for humanitarian purposes. It was taken away from him for inhuman purposes by men like you.
No, ma'am. Men like me, just errand boys. Sent to do the wet work. All the glory, none of the benefits.
After what you've seen down here, do you think any of it could be turned into benefit?
Yes. I think it could be turned into $5 or $10 million. Now how do we get into D-Lab?
Death Lab. Shawn was killed, never even knowing it existed. They kept him isolated upstairs, while a separate team was down here, corrupting his research, using it to build BOWs.
BOWs?
Bioorganic weapons.
Darts. Plant.
Early experiments.
Snake.
A failure. Its behavior remained reptilian. All they could ever get it to do was grow in size.
Those dogs, they were weapons?
No, they simply became infected, as did everyone else. Janitors, the cook, electricians, guards, people who believed they were serving their flag, scientists, great minds, turned into mindless ghouls.
Before the outbreaks, the experiments went further, didn't they? Those ceiling crawlers out there.
The product of human DNA spliced with the DNA of vicious carnivores, animals, even insects, plated with armor beneath newly cultivated skin, then injected with poison so their biological components would die. The T virus reactivates them in a matter of minutes, but in battle, lost minutes are inconvenient. So the BOWs had to die and all be allowed to revive fully before they could be used to full advantage. They were murdered by their own people, so they could never be murdered again by the enemy.
Were any more of these weapons developed?
Ada is about to answer, but Wesker interrupts. How do we get into D-Lab?
You don't.
Ada glances at an innocuous wall panel. Wesker notices a key slot, green.
It can't be opened, thank God. None of us is cleared for that level of security.
How fortunate that I am. Wesker steps over to the wall and inserts his green card into the slot. The panel slides open. Beyond it is a steel door with another green slot. Wesker uses his card again. The lock clicks. Wesker pushes the door open. Barry, come with me. The rest of you, make sure this door doesn't close. Remember. Wesker taps his earpiece. Everyone gets his meaning. He and Barry disappear through the opening. The steel door begins to close. Rodriguez lunges and catches it.
Have you been leaving doors open?
Yes.
This place is going to be overrun by...
Brad's in really bad shape.
Brad is leaning against a wall, sweating, shivering. Rebecca looks at his wounded leg.
That's not just a scrape. You were bitten, weren't you?
One of the sharks, its teeth, I just brushed up against its teeth after it was dead. Shoot him. Somebody shoot him.
No, we're so close. The antidote.
Interior stairwell. Wesker and Barry trot down a flight of metal stairs.
What's got into you, man? This isn't like you.
Oh, yes. This is exactly like me. Until now, Wesker has been steadfast. He suddenly seems nervous, anxious. Some of it is fear. Most of it is anticipation of the goal that is suddenly within his reach. This is what I've been all my life. A guy sucking up to the honchos, wiping the shit off their asses, all the while looking for a break. A way to get some of my own. Well, this, my friend, I'm myself, all right. And I know exactly what I'm doing. I told you. Before this day is over, I'd pay you back. Interior cubicle, timeless. Chris and Jill step past Rodriguez. They take off down the stairs. As they leave, Ada opens a desk drawer and pulls out a 45.
You know how to use this thing, Chica?
Of course I do. I'm a scientist.
Ada clicks back the bolt, whips up the 45, aims it at Brad's head. Rebecca dives in front of the man.
No, you can't. Not while there's still a chance to save him.
Interior security chamber, D-Lab. Wesker and Barry arrive at a set of plexiglass doors. We can't see through them. They're fogged. Wesker finds a key slot, inserts his access card, and whoosh, the doors open. A cloud of hyper-cold mist rushes out, instantly coating the men in frost. Wesker doesn't feel the cold. He doesn't feel anything except a surge of triumph. He steps through the opening into a laboratory that looks like the cockpit of a Concorde, only 100 times larger. Nothing is recognizable except for a desk that holds a futuristic Ibcon computer. A befuddling array of buttons, switches, stuttering lights covers every inch of wall space. In the center of it stands a tall cylindrical tank, a stasis tube filled with ice. It's mounted on a 6-foot-tall platform like an altar. The cables and flexible tubes running in and out of it. Wesker squints and through the freeze sees the thing that stands sedated in the cylinder, the Tyrant. It's 9 feet tall, like the Hunters, more or less a human form, although its musculature is more defined than Superman's. One of its arms is scaled to size, but the other is much longer. Its hand dangles at knee level. Monstrous steel claws depend from its fingers, nearly touching the floor. It's called the Tyrant. Nobody knows it exists, except us and Holden.
Holden?
Umbrella's man in D.C. We need him. He signs the checks. We've got it, Barry. Our fortune.
You're not going to try to get this big mother out of here.
Don't have to. All we need is the data. Then these things can be cranked out on an assembly line. Laying down his automatic, Wesker hits the computer keys until a disk pops out of a master feed. Yes, there it is.
What about the antidote?
Antidote? There is no antidote. That was just happy horse shit to keep the team going. Neither man notices that the removal of the master disk has caused certain systems to fail, indicated by the red lights and by the fact that the walls of the Tyrant's cylinder are beginning to run liquid sweat. The ice is melting.
You're not going to give this to Umbrella?
No, I'm going to sell it to them. And then I'm going to open a Swiss bank account. Right next to yours.
God damn.
Jill has appeared in the doorway with Chris. They both look at the monster with awe and terror.
That thing can't be real.
It's real, all right. And it's worth more than gold. More than uranium.
Did we get a piece of that action?
Rosie has arrived. So have Rebecca, Ada, and the 2 surviving scientists. All of you do. Anyone who comes out of this alive gets a taste.
I'm in. I've been eating shit all my life. I'm happy to eat some more, as long as it's got some gravy on it.
Rosie steps into the lab, her weapons ready. Anybody else see it my way? One of the scientists, Toshiro, rushes to join.
You disgrace yourself.
I want to live.
Smart. Anybody else? Valentine? Jill looks at Chris. Then she steps through the doorway and takes a defensive post beside her CO.
I was gonna try to disarm the bomb. This place should be destroyed. It needs to be destroyed.
Chris lifts his rifle. Wesker is faster with his pistol, aiming at Chris's belly. Gotcha, son. It's only because of Valentine here that I don't squeeze the trigger. Chris and Jill exchange dagger eyes.
If she's on your side, she doesn't mean shit to me. And I don't mean shit to her.
Chris, please. There's only one way to go here.
That's right. My way.
Yes, sir. Your way.
Jill presses in close to Wesker, as if completely allied.
I can't yell at you, Chris. How much I wanted things to have turned out differently. Goodbye.
Swiftly, unexpectedly, Jill snatches the detonator wire and pulls the sensor out of Wesker's ear. Everyone shuts their eyes, expecting to be blown sky high. Nothing happens. Jill pulls the detonator off of Wesker's belt and stares at a small LED which reads 144216, 15, 14,
Shit! I got all my courage up and we still have 15 minutes.
Jill tosses the detonator to Chris. Wesker turns to her, lifting his M16.
You shoot, I shoot, boss.
Wesker turns to find Barry aiming a weapon at his belly.
Shit. Here I am still calling you boss.
Wesker is holding the data disk. Suddenly, he feels it snatched away by Ada, who has rushed into the room. He aims his weapon at her back as she darts away. Before he can fire, he's kicked in the head by Jill. Buckling, dazed, he looks up at her.
We believed in you. I believed in you. Boy, was I a sucker.
She kicks him again, just for the hell of it. He flops on the floor, his eye sockets swollen. He's dropped his gun. He gropes for it. Barry steps in and boots it away. A klaxon sounds. Emergency. The ice is in the tyrant's tank, and it's melted down to a critical level. The monster is beginning to move. Reaching the doorway, Ada hears a mechanism trip in the jab. The plexiglass doors begin to slide shut. Ada strains to hold them back.
Get out, now, or you never will.
So, we'll live here. No, the landlord looks like a son of a bitch.
Rosie rushes in to help Ada hold the doors. So does Benjamin, the second of the surviving scientists, who is mauled from behind by a zombie. It's not just any zombie. It's Brad Vickers, back from death, who bites out the artery on Benjamin's neck.
I told you to shoot him.
Ada lifts her .45 and blows Vickers away. She looks down at Benjamin writhing on the floor, aims at his head, and fires again. Rodriguez is the only one holding the doors. Jill rushes to help her.
Everybody out!
13 minutes.
Inside the lab, Barry turns to Toshiro, the other scientist.
Go.
Toshiro hesitates, a second too long. Crash! The stasis pod bursts open. Water and bits of ice fly out along with an enormous bionic hand. Big enough to grab Toshiro's head as if it were a cantaloupe. Powerful enough to crush that head as if it were, well, a cantaloupe. Wesker, still searching for his pistol, sees all of this. The tyrant is not completely free. Much of the cylinder wall has cracked away, but sections of it cling to the now misshapen mass of ice that still holds the monster bound. Though it won't for much longer. Wesker stares towards the door. Barry grabs the back of his shirt and pinches him across the lab.
You and me, we ain't going nowhere. Not just now, boss.
Barry turns to the others clustered in the doorway.
This thing gets loose, it's gonna be pissed. Somebody's gotta hold it back. Give you guys a fair chance.
Look out!
Wesker has found his pistol. He fires at Barry, who, ducking, is only grazed. Wesker aims at the group in the doorway. Barry pops out from behind the desk and shoots back at him. Ada and Rebecca duck away from the door, pulling Rodriguez and a reluctant Jill after them. The doors begin to slide close. Chris valiantly tries to prevent them from shutting. Wesker crawls like a dog. He manages to fling an arm out through the opening. Steel bumpers press against the meat of his forearm. Wesker looks up through the plexiglass. His eyes meet Chris. Get me out of here, Redfield, or so help me God, you're a dead man. With his free hand, Wesker aims his pistol at Chris. The gun barrel is an intimidating sight, even though it's on the other side of the plexi. Chris glances at the others.
Get going.
Not without...
Move.
Ada, Rebecca, and Rodriguez wrestle Jill away bodily and start up the metal stairway. Come back, Rodriguez, Valentine. That's an order.
Orders don't mean shit anymore, Wesker. Especially when they come from a sellout bastard like you.
Chris lets go. The door squeezed tighter. Wesker screams. Through the plexiglass, Chris catches a glimpse of Barry, who stands and gives him a military salute. Chris salutes back. Blam, blam, blam. Wesker fires 3 rounds. Dusty blemishes appear in the bulletproof glass. The slugs ricochet back into the lab. One of them chips away at the ice, which is less and less able to contain the tyrant. Chris makes a break for the stairs. Wesker twists his body in an attempt to push his pistol through the opening, but his fist around the stock is too thick. Nonetheless, Wesker fires. Blam, blam, blam. Bullets scream off of the banister rails, but none of them contact Chris's legs, which disappear up the stairs. The ice in the stasis tube is turning to slush. The tyrant is about to break free. Wesker looks pleadingly at Barry. Buddy, you gotta get us out of here.
Not sure I know how, boss. Do you? Is there some other need-to-know secret for shutting down the Big Bopper here?
No, it can't be shut down.
The ultimate warrior. The ultimate soldier. We'll see. how it does against a couple of hard-ass career guys like you and me.
Wesker swings his free hand and aims his pistol at Barry. Click. The gun is empty. Interior cubicle. The escapees arrive at a security cubicle.
The corridor outside can be moved.
Ada rushes to the instrument panel. Her hands go to work on an array of buttons and switches. Runway. The multifaceted corridor twists into a new configuration and with a rumble of an 8 on the Richter. Interior cubicle.
You won't come out in the same place, but you'll find the freight loader that can be accessed with...
A blue key, I hope.
No. Hot blue or green. Red.
Ada pulls out a red key from under her lab coat, snaps the chain around her neck, and holds it out to Chris.
I took it from an umbrella agent assigned to us here. He died, like all the rest.
Red overrides green.
Yes.
So you could have unlocked D-Lab?
I was hoping it would never be unlocked again. Go. I will see that this is destroyed.
Chris grabs Ada's arm and holds it tight while he wrenches the disc away from her. He holds it over, he folds it over onto itself, drops it to the floor, and pumps 3 Winchester rounds into it.
It's destroyed. It's worthless. But you're not.
I helped develop it.
Unwittingly. They lied to you. They lied to Marcus. They made you believe you were doing a good thing when it wasn't even good at all. It was evil. Resident evil.
Ada looks deeply into Chris's eyes and glares at that pun.
The kind of evil that resides in all of us, makes us greedy, uncaring, the kind of evil that will wipe us out in the end, unless we can stand up against it.
Stand up? Against powers that have ruled the world since before we were born? We will only be eliminated or locked away someplace else. I'd rather die here, knowing that the virus has died with me.
Jill takes a step towards Ada.
What if it's already spread? You're the only one who knew anything about it.
But I know so little.
More than anyone else, you have a responsibility.
To a higher command, the highest.
She and Chris touch eyes again, this time understanding. Interior D-Lab. The Tyrant flexes its monumental muscles. The ice around it cracks, but clings. A huge heart dangling outside of its chest pumps rapidly, sending fluids through exposed synthetic veins that run to the creature's brain.
That's one hell of a big pump.
An implant.
From what, a fucking elephant?
Rhinoceros.
Shit. I figured you knew more than you were telling.
Barry fires at the encased organ. His bullets bounce off of the shielding with no effect.
How do we kill this thing?
I told you, we don't. We can't. It's unstoppable. More ice pops off of the monster's pectorals. Interior runway, close on Ada's face.
I don't know if I can face this.
She and the other escapees are no longer in the cubicle. They're in the runway.
Just get us upstairs. I'll take care of it from there.
All right. Come.
They break out at the run, clacking along the faceted steel floor to the movable and still moving corridor. Krung. They're nearly knocked off their feet when the system suddenly stops dead. Ada slams her fist into one of the jigsaw tiles on the wall, another red one, which glows from within. A panel grinds open, revealing a more natural-looking corridor. Halfway along, there are steel prongs that protrude from the wall. The group starts towards them, but then stops with a soul-shriveling sound that fills the passageway, the hungry moaning of things that are dead.
Doors were left open.
Interior D-Lab. The Tyrant breaks free of the last bit of restricting ice. Wesker freaks. Whimpering, he gropes with his hand that's outside the plexiglass doors. He grabs for something, a boot. Brad Vickers' boot. Wesker tugs on it. Barry opens fire on the Tyrant, full bore with his M16. The stream of bullets does nothing except make the monster notice the big man. Interior freight elevator, or freight corridor. The escapees run down the corridor. Shapes appear at the far end. Zombies, 20, 30, 40, more. The walking remains of the humans that were infected in the lab, crawling over each other, hungry for living flesh. The humans reach the freight loader. Prongs like those on the forklifter, extend to the heavy chain drive that runs up and down through openings in the floor and ceiling. Ada swipes her red key through the slot and pushes a button. The chain drive grinds upwards and hoists the prongs.
Step on.
Ada pushes Rebecca onto the next set of prongs that come out of the floor. The footing is precarious. Rebecca has to hold on to the chain as she is hoisted. The lift moves slowly, 8 feet separating each set of prongs. The ghouls begin to continue to press in.
I don't know if it's going to happen.
Come on, I've been waiting all day for something like this.
Rosie opens fire. Chris and Jill follow suit as Ada steps onto the next set of prongs. Blood flies. Skulls shatter. Front ranks drop. Zombies from behind push their fallen comrades ahead of them. The corridor is like a syringe filled with corrupted bodies, pushing inexorably forward. Rosie, teeth gritted, keeps firing while Chris forces Jill into the next set of prongs. As she rises, she hands her M16 to Chris. He slings it onto his arms while levering the old Winchester, making all of the shots count until the next set of prongs rise out of the floor.
You're I'm having too much fun. You got a lady. I got just me. Anyway, I ain't gonna die in this rat hole. I'll make it. Get out of here.
Chris hands Jill's rifle to Rosie, who fires with both hands as Chris jumps onto the lift. Zombies are mowed down. More to come. The syringe keeps pressing. The next prong rises. Rosie steps on, still blasting. The first zombies reach her. Shooting down, she blows them away. But more come, grabbing her legs, grabbing the chains, rocking the prongs. Rosie nearly falls. She drops one of the rifles in order to hold on. She carefully picks up the most threatening zombie. Miraculously, she rises out of their reach and into a very tight, very dark space with sheet metal walls that have been bruised by loads of freight. The rumble of a chain drive echoes frighteningly. Above Rosie, the others rise slowly, very slowly, feeling apprehensive and vulnerable. Rebecca at the top looks up and sees light spilling through an opening through which she is about to pass.
Level C. Have your weapons ready.
Whoop-de-doo.
Rebecca's eyes rise above the floor of level C. All seems quiet, but who knows what might be lurking. Interior D-Lab. The Tyrant, still a bit sluggish, steps down from the platform that supports its tank. Barry jams in a fresh clip and keeps firing at the thing. The Tyrant, impervious, stalks after the big trooper. Wesker is still on the floor, though his arm through the door, tugging on Vicker's boot. The flesh on Wesker's forearm is peeled by the bumpers as he uses all of his strength to drag Vicker's body closer until the boot winds up in the opening, preventing the doors from closing. Wesker manages to pull his bloody arm free. He rushes to a computer console and types a request for the T-virus.
Get under a desk, man. I'm going to feed this thing a pineapple.
Barry pulls a grenade from his belt. No, that might damage the system. I've got to get this data. Wesker's M16 has been lying where he left it on the console. He picks it up.
Forget it. Bullets don't work.
Barry is about to pull the pin on the grenade when Wesker triggers off a burst into Barry's gut. They seem to work just fine. Barry is blasted across the lab. The Tyrant makes its first quick move, making us appreciate how fast and powerful it really is. It swipes at Barry's body as it flies through the air, catching it in its steel claw. We hear bones snap as Barry goes limp. That's it. Take a little lunch break, Mr. T. I just need a few more seconds. The Tyrant lifts Barry's body as if it were as light as a feather up to its snout. Recognizing that the man is dead, the monster flings him aside like so much garbage and begins to lumber towards Wesker. Come on, come on. The computer reads 90% complete, 95, 98. Wesker rests a finger on the button to eject the floppy disk. The Tyrant is getting closer by the second. Wesker fires a burst that only slows it for a heartbeat. 100%. Transfer completed. Wesker ejects the floppy disk, jams it into his flak jacket, and fires another burst and runs for the door. The Tyrant has to move around desks and computer consoles to catch him. Wesker shoves his M16 through the space that's being held open by Vicker's boot. He begins to pry the opening wider. A warning buzzer goes off. The Tyrant dimly registers the sound. His eyes dilate like camera shutters with a click-click. It strides forward at top speed, pitching desks easily aside, smashing through a console as if it was made of balsa wood. Wesker has pried the doors open. The Tyrant is coming on him fast. It's going to be close. Wesker makes it. He gets outside. The doors begin to glide shut. He laughs. Eat shit, you... Bang! The tyrant's long bionic claws shoot with the speed of switchblades through the opening just before the doors meet. 4 of the claws skewer Wesker, passing it clean through him. He doesn't die instantly. He's still alive and screaming when the tyrant uses the same hand with Wesker impaled on it to push the doors open wide again. The action causes Wesker's head to be sliced off by one of the steel bumpers. The tyrant steps out of the lab. As the doors glide shut, the monster holds the remainder of Wesker's body inside their path. The bumpers are stopped by the tyrant's iron hand, which it extracts, letting the doors scrape the dead meat from its claws. Interior freight shaft. Rebecca is approaching another opening.
Level B.
Interior freight corridor. Level B. The corridor on level B is long and narrow, with many occasional pools of light from a bare overhanging bulbs. Rebecca rises like a spirit out of the floor. She lifts her weapon. Her eyes dart, looking for dangers. There are none. The corridor, while very spooky, is quiet.
Don't see anything.
Good.
Interior freight shaft. Rebecca rises through the ceiling.
We're almost there. You'll have to jump off. The belt won't stop.
As the echo of Ada's voice rings off, Rebecca looks up and scream. Something dives down at her out of the darkness. She ducks, almost losing her balance. She clings to the chain as another thing, black, relatively small, whips past her head.
Bats. They're bats.
There are bats
Never
down
mind.
here. You're good.
No, they're crows. Infected. Don't let them bite you.
Rebecca dodges with new urgency as the blackbirds dive past her. Looking up, she sees more coming. She aims her M16 and fires up into the shaft. 2 birds are hit. They plummet. One hits Ada. She swats it aside. It drops all the way down to Rosie, who jumps, gasping when it hits her.
Rats. Flying rats.
Beneath her, Rosie sees the crows hovering in the light from level B. They circle and start to fly up again. Rosie opens fire, filling the shaft with ribbons of lead. Another bird dives from above, and, scrit, it takes a chunk out of Rosie's cheek.
Ah, you fucker.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm cool.
Rosie keeps firing. The deafening sound of her M16 keeps her from hearing, scrooch, the sound of the sheet metal wall. A second later, rip. The metal is torn open like tissue paper. Something dark lunges from the opening. It's the surviving hunter. One of its steel claws grabs the chain drive. The mechanism stops dead. Quick cuts, one of the escapees slipping, nearly falling as they hang on to the chain.
I thought it wasn't supposed to stop.
I'm out. Out!
Rebecca has nearly reached level A, but she's able to hoist herself up and roll to safety. Ada tries to climb. The chain is greasy. Her hands slip. Below, the hunter lets go of the mechanism. The chain jerks. The escapees nearly lose their balance again. Rosie at the bottom is being lifted by the hunter's free hand. She jumps down, barely catching as the next set of prongs beneath her. At the top, Ada reaches level A. Rebecca catches her and pulls her up to level A. Jill is next, rising slowly. Rebecca and Ada reaching down and they grab her arm just as the mechanism stops again. The hunter grabs the chain again. It's free and it swings, clutching to Rosie, who crouches, avoiding capture. Jill is pulled to safety. She turns and reaches down for Chris, who starts to climb the chain. His hands slipping in the grease.
Rosie?
I'm all right.
She's not all right. She's trapped. She can't get past the hunter. She fires at the thing. Bullets bounce off of its protected steel underhide. Chris climbs 3 feet, slides back 2. The others reach down from above. Their hands come within inches, but can't quite catch a hold of him.
Here, you lizard, you fucking cockroach, here.
Straining to reach Rosie, the hunter lets go of the chain for a second, then latches on again. The second lifts Chris to within reach of Jill and the others. They grab his arm and lift him up. The second has also brought Rosie within reach of the hunter. Its claws comb her hair as she tries to duck lower while keeping her balance on the prongs. Thwack! Something crashes through the wall, a monstrous claw that impales the hunter. It's the claw of the tyrant. The chain mechanism begins to rise again. Rosie, cringing, is lifted past the monster just as it leans its head and shoulders into the shaft to examine what it's caught. Disappointed, the tyrant scrapes the hunter off of its claws. It drops away down the shaft. The tyrant turns its clicking, dilating eyes up at Rosie and, chung, purposely stops the writhing chain.
Bad news, guys. This thing's not so stupid.
Climb, Rosie.
No, I'm finished. I live here now.
Rosie, no!
Rosie dives off the prongs and directly at the tyrant. With another lightning move, the monster catches her in its bionic claw, crushing her ribs. With blood spurting from her mouth, she utters her last words.
Eat me, you pile of shit.
Interior level A. Ada is the most pragmatic.
Come.
Rosie.
Come. You convinced me that there were larger matters. We're at the top. You said you'd get us out.
Ada's words snap Chris back into the urgency of their situation. He struggles to his feet.
This way.
They're in the mansion, which Chris knows well. He leads his small troop to the powder room, decorated garishly in the East Indian motif. A ceramic tiger's head sits atop a vanity. Chris grabs it and twists it on a pivot. A panel spins. The commode disappears into the wall, opening a secret passage.
Hello, shithouse.
This guy was a bootlegger with a sense of humor.
Chris leads the other into a small blank chamber. The only thing it holds is a grandfather clock.
I hope they haven't disabled this.
Chris opens the door that covers the clock face. He quickly spins the hands until they hit high noon. Grunk. A wall behind begins to grind open, straining against the rust, dirt from years of idleness. Cobwebs are pulled apart, and daylight appears.
All right, we made it.
Chris urges the others to go through the opening. At the same time, he checks the detonator. The LED is down to 6 minutes and counting. Interior, Huey Day. At the controls of the helicopter, LaGuardia spots something. Exterior mansion, Huey's POV. Rebecca, then Ada, then Jill climbing onto the lawn. Interior, Huey Day.
I'm going in.
You don't have authority.
Fuck authority.
Exterior mansion yard Day. Chris climbs out of a secret exit. The others, having spotted the incoming chopper, are waving at it. There's a sense of relief, of salvation. Only Chris notices a bit of plaster falling away from one of the mansion's stone walls.
Watch it. Watch it!
Crash! The tyrant bursts through the wall. With superhuman speed, it attacks the escapees, who run, dodge, and barely escape the wishing swipe of its claws. Interior, Huey Day.
What in God's name is that thing?
Something we weren't supposed to see. Drop the ladder and drop the stinger.
Exterior mansion yard Day. The Huey swoops down as low as will safely allow. The faceted aluminum ladder unfurls.
Get up!
Chris pushes Jill towards the ladder. He pulls on Ada's arm and sends her up first. Ada begins to climb, then Rebecca. The tyrant closes in, swiping at Chris, who just manages to avoid the slice of its mighty claws. Radio Man leans out of the door above, holding something.
Catch this!
Chris doesn't hear. Jill does.
Toss it to me!
Radio Man drops the stinger, a rocket with a shoulder launcher down to Jill's hands. Chris hits the dirt. The tyrant tries to crush him by stepping on him. Chris rolls away. The ladder is too wobbly. Jill can't be sure of launching an accurate shot.
Chris!
Chris looks up, sees Jill holding the rocket launcher. He runs past the tyrant, okie-dokieing. Left, right, then dodging left again. The monster swipes at him with its elongated claw. Chris's flak jacket is caught. Protective fibers fly, but Chris escapes without injury. Jill pitches the weapon. Chris catches it. The tyrant is on him, about to stomp on him with a bionic foot when Chris aims at the monster's rhinoceros heart and fires. The rocket connects on target. The casing around the animal heart explodes, and the tyrant drops like a giant redwood on top of Chris's legs. As Chris tries to free himself, he checks the detonator. 3 minutes, 2:59, 8, 7, 6. LaGuardia drops his chopper a bit lower. The bottom of the ladder hits the ground, coming within Chris's reach. He grabs on. The helicopter rises again. Chris is lifted out from under the tyrant's steel body and is lifted into the air. He climbs frantically. Above him, Jill is still on the ladder as well. Ada and Rebecca pull her up. Chris dangles as the Huey banks away over the forest. The top of the trees whip his legs, and he hangs on, climbing up until the others catch his hands and hoist him into the chopper. Chris checks the LED. 1 minute, 45 seconds.
We have to get out of range.
No. Circle around.
Are there more survivors?
No, just circle, okay? I want to take a last look.
The Huey banks into a circle. Chris looks down at exterior aerial POV at the mansion. It's just over the hills. His farm. Exterior Huey Day.
It's your home.
Chris looks at her with a resigned smile.
I hoped it would be our home.
I guess we're gonna be moving.
Chris checks the LED. 38 seconds.
Full throttle! Out of here, man!
LaGuardia pushes his stick. The Huey lunges forward at top speed. Rebecca, Ada, and Jill are pushed back by the inertia. Chris holds himself erect. Through the window at the receding sky, he spots an eagle riding the wind. Cut to exterior Arclay Forest in the mansion. Boom! The ground erupts from an enormous underground explosion. The mansion is reduced to particulate as a shockwave spreads outwards. Exterior farm day. Chris's farmhand, Rake, is shambling out of the house, a zombie, when the explosive force hits, tearing him apart. Exterior Raccoon City day. The town is empty, except for nine lonely figures lumbering down Main Street. They, too, are zombies. The hot wave hits. 2 are vaporized. Fire engulfs 2 more. The brains of 2 others are destroyed by flying debris, which catches the remaining 3 as well. Arms are torn off. Iron shafts from shattered plumbing. Shards of window glass. Slats from picket fences. Punch through necks, chests, and bellies. But the dead things, their skulls undamaged through the billows of dust, continue drooling hungrily. The screen goes black. The end.
What?
All right. Well, that is our reading for Romero's Resident Evil. We'll see you at the next one.